I'd like to call to order the Monday, 27/2016 regular meeting. Please join Councilmember Holman in the Pledge of Allegiance and stay standing for the invocation, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, once again we gather to review opportunities and challenges and make decisions for the continued betterment for the residents of the city of Goodyear. We rely on you providing us with guidance that results in wise and thoughtful decisions that benefit all. We thank you, too, for the safety of our first responders and military. Your kindness to this community has been consistent and plentiful. We ask you now that you continue with your protection and guidance. In your name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Holman. Council Campbell, I know you're coming via the telephone. Are you there?
Yes, I am, Mayor.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you again for taking the time out to be on the phone. So we'll go to the communications. We have two communications items tonight. The first one is a presentation regarding the plans for the Regional Veterans Center related to the Veterans Success Project. Mr. Steve Yamamori, Vice President of the Veterans Initiatives with Maricopa Community College's Foundation, to present. Good evening, Steve. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Lord, members of council. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come and tell you a little bit about our project. I know, Mayor Lord, your leadership within our advisory committee is very appreciated.
Thank you.
And do I have access to the...
Do you need help? We'll bring assistant up.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Got it?
No,
Okay.
good. So what we have found working at Maricopa Community College's foundation is that we have 250 students throughout the district. We are one of the largest community colleges systems in the country, and we have over 10,000 veteran students currently enrolled, currently using the GI Bill. And what we have found is that when our military members and spouses are transitioning out of the military, they are oftentimes they don't have a lot of resources available to them, which is odd because there's over 40,000 organizations nationwide that are out there to support veterans and military, and they do go through 5 days of TAPS, Transition Assistance Program, from the military as they're getting out. But one veteran told me, I served 90 days being indoctrinated from the community into the military through boot camp, and I had 5 quick days to be indoctrinated back into the community from the military. And oftentimes these veterans are 30 days away from losing their house and their employment. And so their head's not in the right space as they're transitioning. And what we have found on campuses is that our veteran students have been told, hey, you know what, your next job is to be a student because you can do your GI Bill and you can get housing as well as tuition. But these veterans are nowhere close to being able to have a success plan in place. And so oftentimes they are more unsuccessful than their civilian peers. And so this has been a problem that the Maricopa Community Colleges as well as the four-year institutions have realized. And so another issue is that 80% of those veteran students need remedial classes before they can start their journey. And oftentimes they come in unprepared and they are unsuccessful. And what was interesting to me was that if they are unsuccessful and cannot continue with their studies, they have to pay that BAH housing allowance and tuition back from the GI Bill. So often we have folks that are also in debt by trying to pay back these GI Bills for $10,000, $20,000 as they're just getting out of the military. So what we've done is we are looking at supporting another 100,000 military students in the next 5 years as we are working to bring more success offerings to the Maricopa Community Colleges. But this program is bigger than just our students because we're noticing that these recently veterans have not had this transition assistance since Korea, since World War II, since Vietnam, as well as Gulf and Afghanistan veterans. So what we're trying to do is to create the West Valley Center for Military and Veteran Success. It will be a holistic one-stop shop so that we can bring in and case manage each veteran, military member, and their spouse, so we can sit down and have our case managers talk to them and understand holistically what their plan is for success, and then bring all of the community resources together to execute on that plan for success. I do want to mention, and I would be remiss if I didn't, how supportive the City of Goodyear always has been with protecting the Southern Departure Corridor at Luke Air Force Base, with your efforts supporting Fighter Country Partnership, with your efforts with transitioning military. So I thank you for that long history of city support. As you can see in the presentation, we have gone out to ask all of the different cities in the West Valley, do you have a place where we could be that is fairly turnkey, that is efficient, that we can start working on this case-managed transition for veterans and military? And a few cities came forward and offered a couple of options to our advisory group at the end of the first quarter of this year. But Luke Air Force Base also came to the table offering up Building 1153, which is, if you're looking at the top of the screen, is heading north on Litchfield Road. And on the bottom of the screen is Glendale Avenue. And so if you're traveling north on Litchfield, before you hit Northern Avenue, you take an immediate right into the Lightning Gate entry, and you take an immediate right to Building 1153. It was the former visitor center that hasn't been used for about a year. Luke Air Force Base said this is a great environment because you do not need a base pass to get access to this building. It has a 20-person parking structure as well as a bus terminal. So the accessibility to the transportation hub is very key, so that we can offer anyone a bus pass to get to the center to get some transition. The only bad part is that it's a bit small. It's about 1,500 square feet. But Luke Air Force Base has said, because you are supporting transitioning military members, we will do a in-kind lease back to your organization that will allow you to get in there for free rent. And so the great thing that we can do is we can get in here, we can get up and set up operations for an extremely low cost, and we can start doing our case management almost immediately. Where we are in that process is that we are working on with the Air Force to develop this license agreement, and we should have the keys hopefully in the next 90 days, thinking optimistically, but we know that the Air Force can be tricky sometimes, so we're thinking that it may go as far as 6 months from now. But we are also working with Colliers International and a couple of other local vendors who have said we will find remnant carpet, we will find painters to paint, we will do all of this as an in-kind donation so that we can get out there and really be able to fund this effort for the long term. And that's what we wanted to chat with you about this evening, because as we are looking at our budget, we have an existing East Valley Veterans Center that has been running for 2 or 3 years, which was a Congressman Mitchell federal appropriation of $300,000 that got the building started. That funding has since left, and Rio Salado is managing the East Valley Veterans Center. And this is their annual budget cost. So in summary, personnel and benefits, so the ongoing operations of 173 and upkeep and maintenance for the Building 1153 at Luke Air Force Base is about $200,000 from an ongoing support, from an ongoing operations need. The other $70,000 is more of that one-time fee for computers, the router, IT needs, and things like that. And we are looking at getting donations for that equipment. So as we're moving forward, what we are trying to do is to be extremely efficient with our dollars, and we want this to be something that is sustainable in the next 5 years. So what we are doing is working on 2 tracks of funding. The first track will cover our immediate needs, and the second track, through our foundation, we are setting up an endowment fund that we can put money into that at 5% return will be able to support the ongoing operations in perpetuity. So it's a big it's a big effort in the short term, but it will lead to sustainability, which is obviously the goal of any nonprofit. So what we've done is between the East Valley and the West Valley centers, potentially also for Central Phoenix, this entire effort will look at about $10 to $11 million. But for the West Valley sustainability, we're looking at raising about between $4 and $5 million. What we've done then is we've looked at census data for how many veterans are in the West Valley and what cities they live in. And of the 114,000 veterans by municipality, you can see the distribution through all 13 cities. And so West Phoenix sits at about 33% at almost 40,000 veterans, all the way down to Litchfield Park, Tolleson, and Youngtown that sit at about 0.5%. And you can see Goodyear is about 6,500 veterans, about 6% of the overall demographic. This, I will say, is last year's census data. We should be getting newer census data, and I assume that those veteran populations will rise. What we then did is we took the $2.5 million, which means that is halfway of the amount that we need to be sustainable, and we took that and we distributed it equitably amongst all 13 cities. So as you can see, West Phoenix, again, at 33% of the total, would be about 825,000, all the way down to 12,500, which is 0.5% of the $2.5 million. And to note, this is not a one-time fee that we're asking for. What we're asking for is cities to consider stretching these into 5-year equal payments. And so for the city of Goodyear, at 6%, it would be $150,000. But what that actually means is $30,000 over the next 5 years. We feel that this is a great start of what we're trying to achieve because it's equitable by veteran. And what we would like to do is, the response has been fantastic. And we are receiving letters of support through different cities. And what we would like to do is to get that confirmation of support through the city of Goodyear. And then our goal is to announce the West Valley Veterans Center and then have all the mayors in a press conference announcing this commitment of sustainability so that we can take care of our veterans, military members, and their families for the long term. So that is the presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But again, just thank you all for your time.
Thank you, and a very nice presentation. Any questions from the dais? Councilman Stipp.
Steve, thanks for being here tonight. This is over the last 2 years, I think it was, spent a lot of time looking at the effect that the veteran community has on the greater community. And this is truly an economic development opportunity for not only Goodyear, but for everybody. A strong veteran support system is very important for the community, and I really appreciate you bringing the information forward tonight. And, hopefully we'll be able to garner some support.
Thank you so much, and you're absolutely right. What I failed to mention is we have hundreds of folks that are transitioning out of Luke every single day, and we want them to stay here. And one of the ways that we can keep them here is for them to understand that, hey, there's really a great transition that we can do, that somebody's going to sit down, put together your plan, and work with all of the business communities and all of the municipalities and all of the nonprofits to make sure that we can walk them through to that path for success. And to mention as well, once we do this municipal effort and we announce this municipal effort, we will do a mirror campaign with all of our business partners to do a matching to match that 2.5 million, and we've already got great folks from Fry's, Kroger, Wells Fargo, APS, Palo Verde, who are starting to line up to be able to execute on that mirror campaign. So thank you, sir.
Councilman Pasillo.
Again, thanks, Steve. I piggyback on what Councilmember Stipp just said. I'm in agreement. My question is right now it's kind of the budget time. We're finalizing some of those tonight. What's your timeline, and what are you looking at from a timeline standpoint to get the buy-off from these various cities, and what are you looking to get that commitment? Can you give us a kind of overview of what that happens to be?
Yes, sir. So what I would love to do is we are getting these commitment letters in place right now. And what my goal would be is the end of the third quarter to make this announcement of Luke Air Force Base as the home of the West Valley Center for Military and Veteran Success. So I've been running around doing a lot of these meetings. To your point, it's right around budgeting time. And so my hope would be to get some commitment before the break happens so that I had a commitment letter in hand as we're making the rounds with the rest of the municipalities.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Loretano.
Steve, I want to say thank you for bringing this, to our attention and all the city's attention. I can see this as a hole that really does need to be filled and can really help the veterans, because we hear so many stories about veterans who don't have the support services and don't have that help that they need to succeed and to move on with their lives. And I think this is a great program, and for the sacrifice they have made for our country, I am just very excited about it, and I would love to hear more about the programs once you get it up and see how your success goes.
Thank you.
Councilman Holman.
Excuse me. There was a veteran center established at Estrella Mountain Community College several years ago, probably 4 or 5. Now, does this complement what they do, duplicate what they do, or dovetail what they do?
So we are not going to have any kind of redundancy in what we're offering. And thank you for mentioning that, because every college in our district, we have 10 veteran centers at the college campuses. But what these regional centers will do, again, is to get that veteran or transitioning service member and be able to work with them and put together a plan for them to be able to understand what success looks like. And then once they have that plan in place, if that plan includes education, then we will walk them over to their favorite campus, and they'll start working at the Veteran Center on campus. And that Veteran Center is going to make sure that their GI Bill is in place, that they get certified, that they get any kind of credits to transfer for their service, and they're going to make sure that they get their AA degree. And so once you're on campus, those Veteran Centers are going to make sure that they're on track and that they can get out as quickly as possible. Because the GI Bill isn't a amount, it's a clock. And so once you press that clock to begin your GI Bill, you only have a certain amount of time before you can get that degree.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Osborne.
Well, Steve, thank you. I know that you have a passion for the military and for veterans, from Fighter Country Partnership to this. I appreciate everything that you've done and certainly the need. I think we all recognize that, and I think that this sounds like a great project. Now, a couple of questions, because I'm that mean old businesswoman. I have to ask you, as we look at this, and it's funny because this evening alone, we already have our community funding that we are going over. And some of the things that I know that you weren't able to put within this presentation because it's communication, but I think some things that we'd like to see would be, things like the statement of financial position, your functional expenses, because you kind of had things that were one-time things and then, annual things, but all tied together. So seeing kind of that breakdown.
Sure.
And a strategic plan in a sense. Also, I would have to say that what you're proposing sounds feasible, breaking it out in a great way in the percentages per city. But you had it based at the 2.5 million. So as you go forward, if it becomes the 3.5 million, what do we do then? Where is the, that change or that second ask of this is what we're finding out? I guess that's how especially if we're going to break it out within 5 years. And I guess the last question is, I know that obviously you'll have a foundation. Is it through the community college, or is this going to be a separate foundation that you're starting up? How's that working?
It's going to be through Maricopa Community College's foundation, and so they have more than $40 million that they have in their endowment, so that it will be a separate endowment for the operation of the West Valley Veterans Center. And I'm more than happy, and thank you for asking for those details, because we've done a federal congressional one-pager. We have a white paper for the next 3 years, which is our strategic plan. And I can give you a detailed line item budget that you can see exactly what those costs cover. To your point, what my goal is to be able to raise $2.5 million or close to $2 million through the municipal effort, and then have a mirror campaign with our business and community leaders to get the other half. And we are really looking at between $4 and $5 million to be sustainable, because that will give us the $200,000 to $250,000 in perpetuity. So my goal is to, after the next 5 years, to never come back and ask the city for another dollar.
Well, I wish you well. I really think, we all want to, get behind veterans. And so I'm thankful that you guys came up with this idea.
Wonderful.
Councilman Campbell? Wally? Maybe she had to step.
Thank you. Sorry, Mayor. I had my phone on mute, and I'm talking away.
Yes.
This afternoon, I sat through 3 briefings specifically on veteran services centers, and they are an extraordinary mechanism that will help our veterans transition from the military to the civilian life, hopefully getting them jobs and job training as they need. I would like to visit with Steve when I return. I have heard some exciting news that may possibly help him even expand what he's doing now. But the idea that it's moving forward is much needed, because we will be losing thousands of servicemen in the months to come, and we need to help them transition into civilian life and get jobs so that they can support their families. So thank you, Steve, very much for bringing this program forward for us to consider.
Thank you, Councilman Campbell.
And Stephen, you've heard my remarks before at the big meeting, but I had the military family of 30 years, lots of moves, lots of back and forth from overseas to the States, and new technology, and the question mark how we can do things. But anyway, so I did take time to go to the TAPS program twice, and so I've observed the needs of the GI and how that furnished some of those needs. And the Small Business Association and so forth, they have a lot of different courses, but it really wasn't enough. And it's fine it's not fine, but if you're an officer, when you retire, your pay is somewhat higher. But when you talk about the bulk of the Navy and the Air Force and Army, it's enlisted. So they don't have the fallback on any other way to gain that wealth to start with. So I think it's very important that we take a look at this, and I think the combination of having Maricopa County, the Maricopa College, take care of being the main arch over this, it gives substance to it, and I think it will help in the program. So I really appreciate what you're doing. I think you've all been in observation of some of our GIs, our wonderful heroes that are walking the streets, and they're in situations that are really dire. Well, there's a reason for it, and we need to be out there and helping them. We need to have them regain their lives again. And my younger daughter, who was a Navy pilot, when she got out, she did the GI program, and she earned her teacher's degree. So now she's teaching, math. So they would be a good resource for our schools. And I think that's one of the fields that would be easy for them to go in. So, Stephen, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council.
And, by the way, just be sure that you get the information that one of our council did.
Absolutely.
Requested?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll
All
send
right.
that to Rob
All right.
this evening. Or
Thank you.
Rob.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next communication item will be Cleveland Indians and the Cincinnati Reds presenting their proceeds from the 2016 charity game to each of their designated charities. So Bruce Kessman, ballpark manager, will present and introduce.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Well, it's been a few months since I was here sharing the excitement of the record-breaking 2016 spring training season. We had our 1 million fan come through the gates, set a single game attendance record, and the season attendance record here in Goodyear. That excitement continues tonight as I'm here to recognize the Indians and the Reds for the support they give to our local nonprofit organizations. Each year, the teams designate one game as a charity game. They donate their proceeds to benefit two local charities. This year, they've chosen the Homeless Youth Connection and the New Life Center to be the beneficiaries of the charity game. Over the last 8 years, the charity games have raised more than $220,000 and have directly benefited organizations in our community. In addition to the game, the teams host a celebrity golf tournament benefiting the Hope team. 3 years ago, we started Fan Fest, and the proceeds benefit the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce. And through the Indians and the Team Shop, the Roundup for Charity program benefits the local YMCA. This year, through the efforts of the Indians and the Reds, a total of $76,000 has been raised. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Ryan Lance of the Cleveland Indians and Mike Savarino of the Cincinnati Reds to present this year's text to the recipients.
Welcome, gentlemen. So Ryan, you're first.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Bruce. Thank you for allowing us to just spend a few minutes and share some remarks with you this evening to spotlight these charities and present them with which we hope will be some substantial impact in funding towards their causes. As you know by now, and as Bruce mentioned, we're coming off of another record-breaking season in terms of both overall attendance and revenue numbers. This past spring, we celebrated our 1 millionth fan, and on that very same night, we set a new record, a Goodyear ballpark attendance record, by welcoming 11,616 fans through our gates. And while all of that is extremely gratifying, it's also rewarding as through some of these same resources, we were able to successfully impact our local charitable contributions off the field too. It's important to celebrate and recognize these significant milestones that I just mentioned, and while I'm personally proud to do that, I'm even prouder of the time our players and staff invest in their community year-round off the field here locally. I've said it before in the past, but it's worth mentioning again. When the city made the commitment to build our incredible ballpark and state-of-the-art complexes for both teams, the Indians and Reds also made a commitment to give back to the Goodyear community. Our goals continue to be, as it always has been, to partner with these locally based organizations that share our mission and core values of positively impacting the Goodyear community. And I'm happy to report that we've done that since 2009 to the tune of close to $529,000. Not only are both teams financially vested in the Goodyear community, but our players have also shown a high level of commitment that is second to none through their numerous year-round outreach appearances at many of our local schools, hospitals, food banks, and the Tri-City Boys and Girls Club. We also, for the first time, had the privilege of working alongside members of the Parks and Rec Department in February to help assemble a new playground in the Australia Vista community. Tonight, though, we wanted to recognize just a few of these well-deserving, locally based nonprofit charities that both the Cleveland Indians and the Cincinnati Reds have partnered with this past spring. The money that has been raised will ultimately go to support their mission and the people that serve, not only in Goodyear, but in most cases throughout the West Valley and even out of state in some instances. At this time, I would like to bring up to the front and present ceremonial checks to Don Bogart of the Homeless Youth Connection. HYC will be receiving half the funds raised from the Reds-Indians charity game held in early March. Corey Cooper and Larry Atkinson from the Hope team at Cancer Treatment Centers of America to accept funds raised from our 6th annual Indians Reds Celebrity Golf Classic held at the Golf Club of Australia. John Safin of the Southwest Valley Chamber of Commerce is here to accept a check from our 3rd annual Indians Reds Fan Fest event held at the ballpark in late March. And Devin Kassem from the Southwest Valley YMCA. They benefited from our Roundup for Charity program at our team shop, where fans had the opportunity to round up their final purchase to the next dollar throughout the spring. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share a little bit about how the Cleveland Indians and the Reds impact the community. I'll now turn it over to Mike to say a few remarks as well.
Thank you. Welcome, Mike.
I think you know I let Ryan do the heavy lifting when it comes to the public speaking. But I would just like to say a few words. Mayor, Lord, City Council members, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to speak before you. On behalf of the entire Reds organization, I just want to tell you how proud and honored we are to be able to associate with these fine organizations. And particularly, I'm going to present today to the New Life Center for the Reds proceeds from the charity game. We're humbled by the tremendous work that they do. They're out in the community, saving lives and building futures every day. This time I'd like to introduce Kelly Hernandez, the Community Development Director of the New Life Center.
Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, we'd like to bring the recipients up to have a picture in front of the dais.
Absolutely, absolutely. Could I just take a moment? Is anybody, council, anybody want to make any remarks on the council? I would like to do that before we get them. So we'll start down here at this time. Councilman Holman?
We were very excited to have both of our baseball teams in Goodyear, and your willingness to give back is kind of frosting on the cake, and we so appreciate what you're doing and your continued interest in these organizations that make such a difference in our community. Thank you.
You said it very well. Gentlemen, please take to your organizations our thanks. And we are thrilled to have you in our community. And of course, I hate to say even more so, but the nonprofits that also serve this community are incredible. And thank you. We appreciate it.
Vice Mayor Loretano.
I just want to thank both the Reds and the Indians and all the time they spend in and helping our community. And we are truly blessed in this community to have such wonderful community partners that work together for such positive goals to help all of our citizens. So thank you all very much, everyone.
Councilman Basillo?
And there's not a whole lot more to add to that except, again, thank you. I appreciate you stepping up and being a real strong commitment to our community and to the fine organizations that you donate to. And again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Councilman Stipp?
Literally, what else is left to say? So thank you very much. I really appreciate everyone's willingness to come together.
I agree with that. We're down at the last here, and everything's so nice said for the organizations. Thank you for what you do. But for the teams, we are so pleased to have two Ohio teams. And it has been really such a great relationship. And the nice thing about, after being at both of your cities, during the raising funds and doing PR for Goodyear, your citizens are much like our citizens in Goodyear. And we just make such a great team. So thank you very much, and thank you for taking that one extra step and making sure that you're supporting all the needs of our city. So thank you. Let's give them a round of applause before that. So let's go down here. Let's move on down here.
Going back down there.
So picture.
That way. All right.
But I got to stay with it.
Mike, will they take through the drive-thru?
make it. Oh, sure. I don't think you can go through the demo.
So I didn't let her talk. Wally, are you there, sir, Wally?
Yes,
Hello?
I'm on the phone.
I'm sorry. I think maybe I neglected to call you on this one.
Oh, Mayor, there's nothing left to say. We love the Indians and we love the Reds, and thank you so much for being such an important part of our community.
Well, thank you, Wally. All right, let's go on. Now it's a time for citizens who would like to address the City Council on non-agenda items. Do we have any speaker cards on
No, Mayor.
non-agenda? Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak? Okay, so let's go on down to the consent agenda. Will the city clerk please read consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.6 by title only, please?
Item 6.1, approved draft minutes from a regular meeting held on June 13th, 2016. Item 6.2, approved mayor and council appointments to council subcommittees for fiscal year 2016-17. Number 1, boards, commissions, and committee appointment subcommittee. Reappoint Councilmember Osborne and Councilmember Homan. Appoint Vice Mayor Loretano. Number 2, community funding review subcommittee. Reappoint Councilmember Osborne, Councilmember Pizzillo, and Councilmember Campbell. Number 3, audit subcommittee. Reappoint Vice Mayor Loretano, Councilmember Pizzillo, and Councilmember Stepp. Item 6.3, approve the issuance of 2 utility easements to Arizona Public Service Company and Arizona Corporation for the Goodyear Police Operations Facility. Item 6.4, authorize the city manager or designee to execute an intergovernmental agreement, JPA 15-0005688-1, with the Arizona Department of Transportation for the purchase of traffic signs with federal funds and authorize a budget transfer to expend the federal funding. Item 6.5, authorize the city manager to approve an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Goodyear and the Regional Public Transit Authority for the provision of transit services in Goodyear. Item 6.6, ratify the acceptance of the 2015 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Award in the amount of $32,728. Authorize the city manager to approve an expenditure of $3,272 from the grant match fund required for the grant match. Approve an FY17 budget transfer for the grant award and execute all documents related to grant management.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item? Councilman Stipp?
Mayor, I just have a question.
A question on which one?
6.6.
6.6. Staff?
What is it?
Here she comes.
It's pretty simple. What is it? I know what the AFG grant is, but what are we getting for?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The grant that we applied for was a behavioral health grant for our members, for our employees. So we recognize that over the last few years, we've had an uptick in people that within our organization that are seeking behavioral health help. So we've implemented a couple projects. Firestrong is an online video-based support for behavioral health issues, and we weren't getting good compliance in use of it, but just weren't getting enough depth of help from that program. So I work with Christine and our labor partners, and we developed for this grant, and our idea is to bring in a behavioral health specialist for a year, possibly, if the money will provide for it, a week per quarter over the entire year where they can provide training, hopefully offer some clinical hours to the employees, and then also do a baseline assessment of the department and how do we move forward once the grant has finished the funding.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right. Then let's go ahead. Could I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Vice Mayor Loretano, a second from Councilman Stipp. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
All right, let's go on to the business. I would like to remind the council to refrain from asking questions until the staff presentations are complete and there's a motion on the table. So appreciate that. All right, 7.1, the business is to conduct a public hearing to consider an amendment to the use permit amendment to remove a stipulation prohibiting vehicular access onto North 161st Street. So I'm now going to open the public hearing, and Planner 3, Steve Karachi, will present. Steve?
Good evening, Mayor, council members. This item was last before you, January 25th.
Can you speak up just a little bit? We have a lot of people out there, and I want to make sure they hear.
Mayor, council members, this item was last before you on January 25th. It is this property right here, Compass Church property, Van Buren, 161st Avenue. Again, the item that is being requested is this driveway here, the northwest corner of the property. It's emergency access only. The request is to have that opened up for church services and other type events for the church. Back in January 25th, the council did hear testimony from the applicant, from the residents of the surrounding Wade Acres development. Council heard testimony from both sides. They heard questions. They provided some guidance. The recommendation was to continue this item so that both sides could get together and try to seek a compromise. Since that time, both sides did make the effort to meet. They met in a mediated session held on April 11th. That was a professionally mediated session. While the city did sponsor the mediation, staff was not a part of it. Staff was not present in the room. We were available for questions, but again, it was the residents, the applicant, and the mediator. 4 members, each from the church and the neighborhood group, attended along with the mediator. Some of the items that the mediator let us know were discussed was the use of, instead of opening up that driveway onto 161st, was the APS driveway. And again, the church said that that was not their preferred alternative, being too costly at this time. They did discuss possibility of one-way traffic movement coming in and then out. That was not the preferred circulation pattern that the church wanted. They looked at maybe staggering church services to times. Church looked at that. Again, it was something that they couldn't work with from an operational standpoint. Another suggestion was traffic control by the police department. Again, church looked at that. That was an added cost for their operation. Another item that came up was potential maybe making this a temporary approval. Let's see how it works for a year or two. The church said for the investment that they would put into it, it probably didn't make sense to then just have that approval taken away. One thing that was also looked at was, if you remember from the staff position prior, there was a request from one of the neighbors, or actually it was concern raised that with the dedicated left turn lanes, there wasn't enough room if you were turning from Van Buren onto North 161st. So there was a recommendation that we would restripe that to a continuous center turn lane. Since that time through the mediation, we learned that residents do not want that area restriped. They like the dedicated left turn onto 161st. So we are going to maintain Van Buren striping, at least in the interim, the way it is now. So that was one item, that was a stipulation that staff removed. We're no longer recommending that this be restriped. Both the residents and the church, they are eagerly awaiting the widening of Van Buren. Again, that's probably not for till 2018, but again, that's something that both sides are eagerly anticipating. They do think that that could help both of their respective positions in terms of traffic. Another thing, the residents did ask for increased communication with the church, and especially notice of any special events that the church would hold. While the mediation session, while it was a good opportunity for the residents and the church to get together, address some of their concerns and talk through some of the issues. Unfortunately, we did not come to find out that any compromise solution was reached. So at this time, the applicant did request that we forego further mediation and proceed back to council for a decision. With that, Mayor, going to our recommendations. Our recommendations are the same as from January 25th meeting. The staff recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission and to the council was for approval. When we took our item to the Planning and Zoning Commission back in December of 2015, a recommendation of denial did come from the Planning and Zoning Commission. So again, that is why you see the split recommendation in the staff report. Staff recommendations for approval subject to 2 stipulations. Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation is for denial. With that, Mayor, that concludes my update on this item. Staff's available for questions.
Thank you. I'm going to handle this a little bit differently, okay, and I do have some requests to speak tonight. So I'm going to read a comment, okay, before we start this. So since the Compass Church parking issue was first discussed in January, we have received feedback from several representatives on both sides of the issue, and we understand that this is an important item for many of you. We value your input, and we want to provide you with the opportunity to share your feedback with the City Council. However, many of you have similar comments related to this issue, and we have a full agenda this evening. So in interest of time, we're asking you that you reserve your comments if your points have already been made by another individual. If you have already submitted a comment card and we read your name, simply raise your hand and we will take note of your position and move on to the next speaker. And finally, we would ask that each group designate one person to answer any of the council's follow-up questions to make clarifying statements. So, before you come up to make your comments, I want to review the process with you once more. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The yellow light and buzzer will let you know when you have 30 seconds left to speak. Before you begin, identify yourself clearly by stating for the record your name and your address. So I have 2 cards here, so if we have any more, or people that in the audience that haven't spoken and want to, have them come up and get a card. All right, quickly. So the first one I received was from Tim Jacobs from Compass Church. Tim?
Mayor,
good evening.
Council, thank you for having me here tonight. I want to just clarify a few things, make sure we're on the same page. I'm the senior pastor of Compass Church. And really what this is about, as we said, is removing this stipulation so that we can have increased traffic flow. We have grown a lot in the years that have followed since the original stipulation was made. A lot of this has been due to things we've done in the community, ways we've been involved in the community. We've been involved in painting all kinds of schools, cleaning up blighted areas. We've been involved in a city project that we've called City Reach, and specifically our Code Busters ministry. But all of that has helped to really allow the church to grow and allow a lot of people to come. And because of that, we're seeing a lot of these traffic challenges. And I do want to just clarify that we really do want to do everything we can to try to make this thing work. We have said we would have no problem putting a right turn sign in. We'd be happy to do that. We'd be happy to put a gate, have it locked, only open at certain very key times. The other thing I want to mention too is that when we're talking about an exit, it's easy to have this idea in your mind that you're going to have hundreds of cars coming out all these times, random times during the week. We're talking about several, very few opportunities during the week and minutes, not hours, just minutes. You know, I don't want to give an exact number, but 20 minutes, 15 minutes at a time during, after services, before services. And that's it. Saturday, Sunday, and a few special events. And I say this because I want to give you the right understanding of really what we're looking at here as we do this. And again, we have 600 feet of frontage along 161st. So we're a pretty major property owner on this street, and we think it's fair, we think it's reasonable to be able to utilize this to make our traffic safer, to be more efficient, to be able to get out quicker, and really make this whole thing much more efficient for our members of our church. So that's all I have. I think I'm done before the yellow light. So,
Thank
any
you
questions?
very much. Then the next speaker is Leticia Castro.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. First, we would like to thank you for the opportunity to continue to spend your time and your support on these issues. I'm representing the residents of Wade Acres and 161st. And I want to make reference to a letter that we sent to you just recently as a result of not being able to reach a compromise with the church. So I would like to read it and just reiterate the importance for this and go from there. So thank you for the opportunity to mediate the amendment proposed by Compass Church to allow vehicular access to 161st Avenue driveway. As you are aware, all of our efforts to reach an agreement or compromise have failed. We are reaching out to you again in support to keeping our neighborhood safe and consistent with expectations of why we live where we live. While we understand that a decision needs to be made, we are asking you to make the decision that will have the least negative impact on our community and consider all our recommendations, which were not even considered by the church representatives. Before you cast your vote, please consider our solutions and make an informed decision. We attended the mediation session. The church representatives were unwilling to explore or consider any recommendations that we presented, including accessing the APS driveway from the front of the building. One of the elders would not even look at us during the session, even turning his chair to the side. Furthermore, the mediator, Amy, informed us that she had done her research and the council would be voting in favor of the church. She said the church already knew they would win and were only at the mediation session to be polite. This information is very disheartening and frustrating. As you know, we have spent much time on this issue. The time spent was not true or representative of mediation. During this time, the neighbors have been willing to compromise and permit the driveway to be open for Sunday service, but the church wants it open other days as well. We also continue to strongly believe that opening the emergency entrance be a temporary solution, and once another access to Van Buren is open, then the emergency entrance be closed. We are also asking for more data to support the need for using the driveway. We have not received this information. Additionally, we asked delaying the use of the driveway until 2018 when the city plans to fix Van Buren to see if the need is still there. We asked for police officers to monitor and they declined. As you see, this is a pattern that supports the thought that we have tried to collaborate and reach a solution that works for both parties and were unsuccessful. We feel that some council members have already expressed to the church elders that the decision will be made in their favor. We are trusting that you will make a decision that will include the voices of the community. We're open to solutions to keep our community safe and as our number one priority.
I'm going to have to stop you there, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I have additional comments. We are going to handle this a little differently tonight. It's been checked through the lawyer, so we're allowed to do this. We have a couple of alternatives to consider. So we need a really good council discussion before we make the motion. So we're up for discussion. Yes, that'd be great. Thank you very much. Wally, I'm going to put you on first.
Thank you, Mayor. I am listening to both sides of this debate, and I'm somewhat concerned with some of the allegations that the community has made against our facilitator and against the preconceived notion of how council is going to vote. Since council doesn't talk to each other regarding votes, I don't know how anybody's going to be voting. Secondly, I feel that the church has grown and we need to take into consideration their safety of getting in and out of their parking lot. But thirdly, I would like to say that the vote tonight is not against the church and it is not against the neighborhood. It's going to be what's best for Goodyear because we're all one community. We all live here and we have to get along. So with that said, I would now like to hear how my fellow council members feel about this issue since I've had absolutely no conversation with anyone regarding this.
Thank you, Wally. All right, next. Vice Mayor Loretano.
I'll kind of kick it off. I think, Wally, what Councilmember Campbell said was very, very well said. We've got to look what's best for the whole city. And I am pleased that both sides did attend mediation. And just from listening to both people, I actually do find a little common ground there. I took several trips in the last couple months to the church. One time I parked and just watched the services go and come. And then I would drive around the neighborhood on sometimes when I don't go to the church, so I don't know what the special events were, and just to kind of try to watch the traffic flows. And if I was in that area, I would just kind of drive through the neighborhood, just try to get a feel for it. And because we do want safe neighborhoods, I think that's really, really important. I would really like to see, and as I hear from other people, it might help generate some ideas in me too, but I am okay with a very limited access during the church services. And like I said, I don't know their schedule of services if when they have them, to get the traffic flow in and out. So I think there actually is some common ground with that to make sure we monitor that. And then I would also say probably for a limited period of time, when we do get Van Buren up, and we do get that, then we may need to relook at that. Or if there's problems, I don't know how we can monitor. Maybe our staff can help monitor this and make sure that this agreement is working. So maybe for like a limited, it sounds like if we're looking for Van Buren in 18, we're going to be in 16, almost 17. A 2-year agreement might actually be something workable. And that's kind of where I'm thinking right now. But if someone else has another idea, I would love to hear it.
Councilman Pizzillo.
I got a couple of questions for staff. I'm not sure who's going to answer this, but one of the questions I asked earlier of staff was, I see the entrance to the church off of Van Buren, and I also see the entrance for the actual street. And one of the questions I have is, I know it's probably not uncommon to have those entrances close together, but typically, at least my experience has been, usually there's somebody directing traffic when they're that close. And my concern is more safety than anything else. If somebody's coming out of that street and makes a left-hand turn, and at the same time somebody's coming out of the entrance and making a right-hand turn, I realize there's quite a bit of distance there. But I've been there and looked at it, and to me it looks like, and again, I'm no engineer, but it looks like an accident waiting for a place to happen without somebody directing traffic to make sure, my experience is you're leaving church and you're going to business, either to the store or whatever the case may be. So you're in and you're out. But the left and then the right kind of worries me at that entrance, because it's my understanding there is no set pattern that's been developed on how they're going in and how they're leaving. There's no one ways. There's no circular pattern there. So they can come out either way. I'm not so much concerned going in. I'm more concerned leaving the premise. What's your thoughts?
Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Pizzillo. The requirement for access points on an arterial is 250-foot separation, and in this case, there's 280 feet. That's our current standard. In the past, I can't speak to what it was. However, we have a situation just around the corner on Saraville where we have approximately 5 access points in a 600-foot section, and that's where there are 3 other churches and 2 schools. So we do have similar situations, but currently this does meet our standard and does not require any special consideration or requirements.
Let me ask this question because, again, usually when I see them, and again, I don't know of all of them throughout the city, is typically, when I see churches are closed, there's somebody directing traffic, all right? What happens down the road if there's a temporary, to make sure how this works, what will the city do if for some reason that happens to be accident prone at that because of the result of the left-right kind of going because there's nobody out there directing traffic? That's kind of my concern. I realize it meets our standard, but since there is no flow, my concern is, are they going to meet in the middle as they're both coming out on both those entrances? So what happens if that shows up? If you clear this off and that happens to be the case, you can't go back and fix it unless the church is willing to fix it by putting somebody out there directing traffic so that it does not become a problem. Just some thoughts.
Thank you, Councilmember. And ultimately, the city's right-of-way is our responsibility. So we always monitor what happens in our right-of-way, and we have the right to interact with whether it's streets or property owners to try to remedy any situation that we do encounter. And we do that as we stand today. However, there wouldn't be a specific requirement in this case. But as they grow, they may consider that in the future.
I don't know if that makes me feel really good, but I appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Councilman Holman?
Well, my comments are this is absolutely being given great consideration. But the bottom line is the safety of the people in both the neighborhood and the people that are attending the church. And I did contact the police department to see if there had been accidents with the existing ingress-egress. And it isn't alarming, but I believe there were 5 accidents at the time in the last, I forget the period of time.
Can we confirm that,
years.
please?
Chief, could you help me?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Homan, we went back 5 years looking at crashes. There had been 14 over a 5-year period, but that includes all the closest intersections, including Wildflower and Van Buren, includes 161st and Van Buren, and 159th at Van Buren. When we looked at all those crashes, we found 2 that were directly related to the entrance or exit to the church. And looking at those 2, neither appeared to have any injuries and neither appeared very serious.
Thank you. I just asked for that because, again, I really, in my mind, I'm dismayed that there are stipulations that when things change, and it has to be very frustrating to have it keep coming back and saying the stipulation has to change, but this is kind of the price we pay for living in a community where only 11% built out. There's going to be more traffic as we grow. There's going to be more challenges along this line as we grow. But I just wanted to say I personally have not ever talked to anybody about how I'm leaning because there's pro and there's con, and it's a very difficult situation to even determine. But my consideration is will be based on the safety and wellness of the community.
Councilman Osborne?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I was the only council member who, unfortunately, that night missed your January meeting. And I'm also a council member that has a great deal of history in this area. And so, I find myself in one of those positions after 9.5 years on this council and 6 years on planning and zoning before that in a conundrum because this is one of those issues that was near and dear to my heart because I used to live in Wildflower Ranch. My children used to were babysat on 161st Avenue. And my children also attended Compass Church at one time, and so did their best friends. So there's a great deal of history on both sides of this issue. So as you stated, Councilmember Homan, this isn't an easy one, especially for my heart. I think the exciting things is, especially as a strong Christian, I love the fact that Compass has a congregation that is growing and is a positive light in our city. I'm thrilled about that. I also understand that when this was probably first looked at back in, 1999 or whenever that was, I was not on either one, the Planning and Zoning Commission or this council, but I'm sure at that time, and then back again in 2003, that there was a unique neighborhood that was being protected. And the least amount of impact to that neighborhood, because it is unique in Goodyear, was the thought behind that. Now, I also can imagine that back in December, when the Planning and Zoning Commission saw this, they were torn on some of the same things. And they did vote in favor of that unique neighborhood. So I sit here thinking about all these things, and I think of the fact that the church did go out to the neighborhood trying to find agreement. I appreciate the neighborhood looking for consideration. I believe that where we are this evening is that we have to have solution, and it would be wonderful if we could find it that both parties were happy about this. This may not occur, but that's what we get paid the big bucks up here, right? You know, we get to make these fun type of decisions. So back to the fact that our own citizens in planning and zoning said no. And the fact that this council had actually tried to have you guys go back for a solution and couldn't find it. I will suggest, and I know that the vice mayor had said, I'm looking for a solution. So I think that it's kind of been discussed, and I believe that I would be in favor of that opening, onto 161st, only during church services, and that by the time the 2018 hopeful Van Buren widening and all of that comes into play, the church will have found solution with APS and will have been able to raise money to change the way they need for their own growth, and that's planning. And you guys have time to figure that out. So to me, that's my compromise. It should be open for Sunday services. You guys figure out how you deal with the traffic and work with the city. And the church works with APS or with the city about finding the solution for when we have an answer come time to widen Van Buren. And that's where I'm at, because I'm hoping that we can find something here that we can find solution for, because I don't want it to be, a neighborhood or a church pitted against each other, because that's not what's good for the city. And back to what Councilmember Holman said, it's safety is what we're thinking about. And I remind us all that we love our neighbor as thyself. Thank you.
Councilman Stipp.
I appreciate everyone trying to get together. Obviously, it was my suggestion that we try to table this and get it, find a compromise. The report that we received from the mediator was kind of surprising to me, in that there were a number of seemingly reasonable alternatives, etc., that the church simply did not want to do and weren't interested in. I found that to be very surprising. Even something as look, we're just going to try to open it up on Sundays, and well, we don't really want to do that, is the report that we got. It's unfortunate that the neighborhood pulled away from that mediation situation, that there was already a predetermined outcome, because I think that was very clear from the beginning that there was no way that we had a predetermined outcome, or we never would have continued this thing and dragged it out for 6 months. So, but in the end, and in the interim, since our first meeting in January until tonight, we had received a very pointed email from, I believe, the chair at the time of the Planning and Zoning Commission, why they, in his mind, why they voted not to approve this. And it's fairly rare for the council to overturn a Planning and Zoning Commission decision. And in my mind, how I'm viewing this is, it's got to be really, really compelling to overturn that P&Z. I mean, that's why we put them there. We put them there to buffer what decisions we're going to make. And the decision many, many years ago to maintain the integrity of that, there was a term that was used to describe the Wade Acres neighborhood, but it's very unique rural character, something that is very rare within the city, and to maintain that was important. And to have the stipulation put in there in the very beginning was an attempt to do that. And I keep looking at the map. Councilmember Pizzillo's got a different map up on his iPad, and I see where the parking lot expanded back to the north, and I keep thinking if they had only expanded it to the east, we wouldn't even be having this discussion, because we'd be talking about the access road share with APS, and this whole thing would be over. But the other thing that concerns me is, within the last week or two, we heard from the manager in the manager's report about the, excuse me, let me just pull this over, the West Valley Christian School, which is at the west of this location at the corner of Van Buren and Saraville, has purchased the property in between Compass and their location. Thank you. And that they intend to use that for overflow parking. And I would imagine we're going to be hearing from the West Valley Christian School about wanting to have access to 161st Avenue if we open this up. If we don't hear it now, we're going to hear it in 5 years from now or 3 years from now, pretty soon. And my big pet peeve is, we're going to have a traffic light at 161st Avenue. And if that happens, then maybe this whole traffic safety concern thing goes away, and we can offer to open it up at that point. But with this remaining in its rural condition and whatnot, I cannot support lifting this stipulation. If somebody has a great alternative, I haven't heard one yet. It looks like the neighborhood's willing to do it on Sundays, and perhaps there's a compromise that the city can work to keep the cost of that temporary access temporary, and give it a sunset. And that way we've all compromised. We don't have to cut the curb out and do all the rest of that, and perhaps the church doesn't have to spend $25,000 or $30,000 to put some gravel in and let people drive on it on Sundays. I don't know, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Everybody's spoken, so it's my turn. I really believe in compromise, and I'm just really disappointed that nobody could compromise in this manner. I was disturbed at the accusations from both sides. In my view, I won't tell you what I thought in my view, but I was disappointed. So I look at it this way. I think there still is a need for the church to use it on Sunday morning and then lock up during the week. And I know they wanted it for special occasions, and I'm sorry about that, because I think that special events is probably really needed. So I'm going to throw that out to the rest of you. I don't know how you feel about that. And it would allow them time enough, the church, to now put some type of financial program in effect that would pay for a driveway. Because they can do that. They do have access to the APS side, so it could be done. So I'm at that point. And it's far from what I thought of the first time I heard the case. So I've had time, and just like everybody else, I've driven over there so many times and looked at the times the church come out and the people walking, and I have a lot of different opinions on it each time I went over. So I sort of came back really without a solution. But I think the compromise to me, for both sides, even though I know the neighborhood doesn't want it, that we keep it locked up, and on Sundays we open it up and allow the church to use the parking. So it gives the church enough time to decide if they want to pay the money to have a policeman out there directing traffic, and it also provides the church time to look at building another exit to that. So with that, we need a motion. So somebody needs to put a motion together. Oh, you have a comment, Councilman Osborne?
So, Mayor, of what you just stated, which a couple of us have stated about the Sunday opening, there needs to be, in my opinion, there needs to be a date specific, or there's got to be some kind of sunset to this, that they have reached. And that's why I had pointed out with the Van Buren issue, giving them time. Maybe there's a different date, but that was just what was in my mind. So I don't think that motion can be stated without some kind of time.
So I'm looking to our lawyer on this because, I've come from, my position was open it up, okay? For the special events and everything. I'm coming from that position. But when I listen to the council and where everybody on the council is, then as a mayor, I need to see where we can reach a compromise, okay? So that, I'm turning it over to our lawyer.
Okay, I jotted down some ideas that might cover that.
Okay, Bill, I'm going to, excuse me, you'll make the motion. Are you going to listen to him? I'm blaming it on you.
This motion is encompassing that you're going to only open the gate during church services. Is that what the idea is? And I heard the word Sunday. My question is going to be if we leave church services as is.
Saturday, Sunday.
That would cover other nights or days.
Right.
And you'd probably want to...
That's not events.
Well, yeah, but and the current stipulation references events, so if council wanted it just for services, you'd probably want to strike the language for special events and maintenance. So I just want to make sure that's what the intent of council was in making the motion.
Okay, I'm looking at you. We're on the...
No motion has been made yet.
but we the discussion, so are you saying
I guess
keep
I
it?
leave it to the rest of our council, too.
Yeah, so I guess what we're talking about the special events. I don't know. Could we ask how many special events there are? Is the pastor still here?
Mayor, council members, we just really the issue is services that we're planning on having Saturday evenings, Sunday mornings. When we said special events, we're referring to, for example, Christmas Eve services that typically bring a lot of people. We have a trunk or treat event, Halloween. That's off of a Sunday or Saturday, Sunday, obviously. And, other than that, we just wanted to throw that in there in case we anticipated a high volume of traffic, which is the reason we wanted to open it in the first place.
Vice Mayor?
So we're basically talking Easter, Christmas, major holidays, not every picnic. I guess that's the whole thing is I don't want to have a stipulation that is so broad it doesn't cover it. So that's where I'm kind of getting at. I don't know how to define those, or just do we list those events? I mean, what do we do?
I mean,
that's a good idea. You could impose a maximum number of special events per year. Special events not to exceed 5 per calendar year.
Okay, so you'd have Christmas, Easter.
Yeah. Wait,
Easter Sunday anyway.
Easter Sunday.
Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, but you go, what about Advent? We do one every Wednesday. And
Okay, well, somebody count them up for me. I failed
Yeah.
Well, you said
I think a number's, I don't know. I don't like a number. And I don't think the pastor does either.
I mean, realistically, I mean, the whole point was we actually want to have it closed the vast majority of the time. We don't want it open either. We don't want people driving through our parking lot. We don't want them going, we don't want people loitering back there. We want to make it as closed off.
And I do understand that, but I also understand the psyche of both sides.
Sure.
and
Yes,
and
How about we use
if we leave it open, it's coming back.
the size of the event?
Well, that's even hard to do.
Well, no, that might be
Because you
easier.
can't really judge on size of events. Sometimes Sunday is full, sometimes it's not so full.
No, I
sometimes-
mean, we talk about religious services and then special events that are anticipated to exceed. And you tell me how big your big events are.
Yes, sir. It's hard to gauge that. It really is, because we'll throw stuff out there and it depends. I guess if
It's
there was
anticipated.
Anticipated, sure. Yeah, I mean,
Is 100 people a lot of people?
No. But I mean, again, we're getting into the weeds
I
here.
think that's what our special events permits are.
There goes
Or
Katie.
250.
Right.
I think Katie's coming to the rescue. Usually it is Christmas Eve, though. See, you got to do Christmas Eve. Yeah, we might have a.
Got Monday, Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Sunday. I mean, that's
Oh, you
three
just
right
did
there.
5.
And then you got Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, All Saints Day, Ash Wednesday, Fat Tuesday. I mean, this
It's
could
any
get crazy.
Consolation, we don't really
You don't have as many people.
celebrate that many of them, to be honest with you.
Well, you might.
Yeah,
Well,
but
that's why we actually said we wanted to leave it for special events in the event that we did have a large number
I
of.
think you'd get somebody coming to your
That's why I'm
rescue.
trying to tie our special event to that special event in anticipation of 250.
Yeah, I mean, my little board back there. I mean, 5. I think 10 might be more realistic for us. That's safe. I mean, we do a lot of our stuff off campus anyway. We have connection groups, people meet in homes, that kind of thing. The challenge with the number is even to, for example, Easter, you might have a lot more people, but they all come in the same car because their families coming together. I mean, it's just, you get into the weeds and that kind of stuff. So I would say no more than 10. We'd be fine with that. Plus the services, we can live with that, no problem. We'll lock that thing up and we're good.
But isn't Easter a church service?
He just said he'd be okay with it. Let's go.
Okay with it. Just
No, but Councilmember, it is, but it falls on we always celebrate it on a Sunday anyway, so it's like.
Can we also add on that notification to the neighborhood?
Sure.
I know you have been doing that, but I think that is just another way to reach out. And I know you've done that before, but if it's continuous and there's notice. All right, I need some help here from the other council people.
What do we have from a language standpoint?
I haven't heard of sunset.
Okay, so it says the discussion to limit the special events and programs to no more than 10 per year. And you want to add following public notification to the surrounding neighborhood?
Yes.
So I think you can just add that to stipulation A. Now, do we want to have this reevaluated after a certain period of time?
Yeah, Joanne called it a sunset, but I'm not sure we really can use the word sunset.
Language I would probably recommend, and talking to the city manager, we anticipate Van Buren will be widened in fiscal 2018. I would probably give them a little bit more time to make sure we're okay with that, but I would add a third stipulation that the amendment shall expire on December 31st, 2018, unless otherwise extended by the city council action, and the previous restriction prohibiting vehicle access on the North 161st shall be reinstated. That gives you the option to extend it or it automatically expires.
So do you want to get down? I asked Bill to do that, to get the verbiage from him. Are you all right
I'll
with
be
it?
happy to physically do that. Somebody else needs to make the motion because the motion I'm
Yeah,
going to make
yeah.
is number 1. So
Yeah. Okay, all right.
I don't think anybody's going to be able to read this, but I can. All right. See my doodles too.
So before we make the motions, is there any more discussion here? Because we
Mayor?
reverse this. Excuse me, you do not
Mayor,
have
this is Wally.
You're out of order. Please sit down. And you have not been called to the microphone yet, so just wait, please. Thank you.
shall expire on December.
Wally was calling.
All right, Wally, I'm sorry, Councilman Campbell.
Yes, I wasn't able to hear anything that the city attorney had said, but what I'm gathering is that you're trying to put a sunset on allowing the driveway to be open only for church services and special events, not to exceed 10 per year. Now, that's only the special events, not the church services, because there's more than 10 church services a year.
Councilmember Campbell, and sorry, you probably couldn't hear me. What we were discussing was amending the stipulation that the gate could be open during church services whenever those occur, plus
Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, yes, plus up to 10 special events or programs, not to exceed 10 in a year, and following notification to the surrounding neighborhood. And we're also putting that sunset provision on.
And the sunset's going on, we're looking at the time of the road. And why?
All right.
What we're looking at?
Yeah, we were proposing.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right. So in 2018, we're going to talk about this one more time. Again, right? It's coming back before council in 18.
Well, hopefully not.
Well, that's why we were talking about 2018 should work. Yes. December 31st, 2018 the road should be in.
December 2018. Okay.
But if it's not, and if the church still wants the gate to open the next year for church services, they're going to have to come back before council again, and we do this exercise all over again.
That's true.
Correct? Okay. I understand it now. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Holman.
I need to ask this question. Do we not want to see what that change on Van Buren or the widening of Van Buren will do for the ingress egress? That doesn't sound to me like we're allowing any time for observation.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Lord, the city manager and I were discussing, we think the project will be done by June 30th, 2018, so that's why we added 6 months to it.
Okay.
Brian, city manager, we just address that.
Yes, Mayor and Council. So the Van Buren project is actually for design is going on this coming fiscal year. So that will, our fiscal year is July through June. So that will be done next year with construction the following. I'm looking at our engineering director. So just to confirm that, and it is in the budget, by the way, for the capital portion, the actual improvements to be in fiscal year 2018. So I'm going to ask our engineering director, Rebecca Zook, just to confirm that it would be completed by June 30th of 2018. And the December 31st date would give that 6 months to really evaluate it, and then it would sunset.
Excuse me, just...
Yes, council and city manager. We are actually just secured a design engineer to do the design on the roadway because the money was actually in our current fiscal year. There are no monies in FY17, and then again in FY18 is when the construction money, and I would hope it would be completed by December 2018. So my question would be, what if for whatever reason it takes a little bit longer to construct the road and we want an opportunity to assess it? I just would want us to consider taking that into account.
Great. Before we discuss that, would Leticia Castro please come up? She had something she wanted to say, and she was the speaker of them, so please come forward. The reason I had you sit back down, because normally you have to come up and not up, and so I hope I didn't offend you, but that's
no,
just
that's fine. I just didn't know when
All
the
right.
appropriate time was to come on up.
Floor. So go ahead.
So our points are to those special events. We understand that as a church, they do a lot of things for our community, and they need their place and their time. But what does this special event look like? Because 1 week they'll tell us Tuesdays, the next week they want to add Thursdays, then they want to add like a summer camp. Like, we don't know. And we've been notified of one special event, which they had an apocalypse night. That was the only one we received a notice in the mail, and it was like a week prior to the event. So when do we anticipate for these special events to happen? 10 a year, you're looking at like one a month on top of what we've already added to our Sundays being there. So if they could provide us with a master schedule and a time frame of when this event is taking place, that would really help us as neighbors to be able to plan our exiting and entering into our own community.
I appreciate that. And I will say I think that most churches do have their year planned in special events, and there probably is something that the committee, the church board, whatever, probably has an idea of what they have for the most part in a year. I'm assuming that. So thank you very much. So
I'm going to have to make this motion.
Councilman Pizzillo, no, we still have some more conversation on this.
No, just to follow up on what you just mentioned there, Mayor, and to the church, I assume you usually map these things out well in advance, so that'd be very difficult to give a 6-month or a year's look into the future where those special events are scheduled? Somebody from the church?
Can the church address that, please? I guess, but
just the schedule to get out to the.
How is it organized? You know, like when you're doing your year plan, because it costs you all of these things too, so you have to have some kind of plan. Do you kind of know for the year those big events? Do you plan?
Yes, Mayor, we do.
You do.
Yeah,
okay.
We do plan. We do advanced planning, and we try to get especially those big events. We have to plan them months in advance. So we'd have no problem, just as we did with the night that was referred to a minute ago, that we did with our high school students, that a notice was sent out, and we would anticipate doing that anytime we perceive. And obviously we know, because in the past we have had more people than we anticipated in an event. Mm-hmm. We didn't want to cause a traffic problem for the neighborhood. We don't want to do that.
But I guess my question, just for clarification, you could give them a 6-month at least window of what is looking for the upcoming 6 months. So
6 months?
Or a year, I mean, or schedule, so they know what's coming.
Sure. I mean, you know, 6. We could shoot them an idea of what we anticipate in 6 months that could be relatively clear.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
That would be kind of, if they had some kind of notice like that, they have it ahead of time, and they can their expectations of what.
Sure.
It interferes with something the neighborhood's doing. So.
May I ask regarding the sunset clause you want to put in there? Would that still require us to do the road improvements to make the investment in it?
Mr. Dalka, did you hear this?
For the exit.
He's asking about, does this require them to do the road improvements?
I'm sorry, I was just conferring with the attorney.
Oh, sure. I was just asking if there is a kind of a sunset time limit. Does that mean that we still would need to make the financial investment in the exit if there's a potential that we would close it down in 2 years?
Yes. So there would have to be an investment made to obviously go forward. We're looking at, and I just looked at CIP, the project should be completed in June, but you always want that flexibility. But answer your question, the investment would have to be made to make the connection to 161st Avenue. And that would be sunset. Right now we're saying, 6 months after the road construction's completed. So that would be, or the later of December 31st, 2018. So that would be the point at where you would know well in advance if that would be closing or not.
So in other words, we would, if for example, we're looking at it costing us $25,000, and that $25,000 would only be good for 2 years because the plan would be to close it at the end of 2018?
It would be coming back before council with the potential to extend it. It would require council approval. Otherwise, it automatically would close the later of December 31st, 2018, or 6 months after road construction completion.
Any other discussion on this? Wally, do you have anything?
Well, no, but it just doesn't seem like a good deal to the church if they've got to invest $25,000 in that driveway only for us to shut them down, unless they would be willing to come back to council to ask if we open it up or if they decide to use another entrance.
I don't
in fact, that
disagree
makes
with,
it even worse.
I don't disagree with it. It's putting pressure on the church. Do I want to do that? Probably not. Am I doing it because I don't think we're going to get consensus on this council without making some changes, and I'm looking for consensus. I don't want this to go away again
Well, I understand, Mayor, and I also understand that the neighborhood has been against the church since before they even came to the neighborhood, and I understand that. We just need to work what will work good for everyone, and to see if by opening up this driveway, it does help the church move their folks in and out, and it doesn't inconvenience the neighborhood very much during that small window of time frame that driveway is going to be used. That's what we've got to figure out.
Thank you, Councilman Campo. Vice Mayor?
And my question is, if we put the sunset provision in, the church and the neighborhood, we can all come back and we can extend it for another 2 years or another year. If it's working well, or if we need to tweak it, we can do that for another 2 years or something. If we find we have to add police officers or add a restriping or something. That's possible?
Yes, that's absolutely possible, Council Member or Vice Mayor.
Any other
We could
comments?
also vote to open it up all the time if it comes back and it finds it's not a detriment to the neighborhood, too. That's always an option, because that is.
Everybody
there.
hear what she said? Any comments? Yes. Councilman Holman.
I need clarification. The $25,000 is what they're saying it'll cost them to fix the drive to connect to 161st? Is that what you're saying? And then, so that has nothing to do with what you would have to do to go out to the APS, to go out to the east.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Not at this time, okay? Thank you. Unless you have a solution to this. Okay, all right. Good. I want the council to continue to work on this because...
I was going to Robert Rules you to death right now.
What?
I was going to Robert Rules you to death and just call the question.
All right.
And debate.
All right. You want to call it?
Calling the question.
It's calling the question, so it's up for vote.
Need a second.
And I need a second for calling the question.
Second.
Pardon me?
Call the question. Fine.
All right, we got a second from Councilman Osborne.
It's non-debatable, so you need to make a motion on calling the question.
All right, so we have a motion.
Motion to call it. It's been seconded.
Second.
Now we need to vote.
So that's all in favor on calling the question, but then you need to go make a motion.
Then I'll make the motion.
Okay. All in favor of the question, calling the question?
Aye.
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 Now?
I need to make a motion.
Now the
Mayor,
motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion.
Make it nice and loud so everybody can hear.
And I'm going
it.
to speak slowly, and it's written so I can give it to the clerk when we're done. Legibly, no less. I'd like to make a motion to approve an amendment as recommended by staff to the use permit for the Compass Church to remove a stipulation prohibiting vehicular access onto North 161st Avenue, subject to the following stipulations. A, property owners shall secure the entrance from North 161st Avenue such that the said driveway shall only be open during church services, special events, and programs not to exceed 10 per year following the notification to the Wade Acres neighborhood, and to facilitate maintenance activities on the church property. At all other times, the said gate shall remain closed. And B, the barricade proposed at the entrance from North 161st Avenue shall provide required emergency access to the property as determined by the City of Goodyear building official. At a minimum, this will include the provision of a Knox padlock on the chain currently barricading the driveway. And C, this amendment shall expire 6 months after the completion of the Van Buren roadway project, unless otherwise extended by council action. Otherwise, the previous restrictions prohibiting vehicular access onto North 161st Avenue shall be reinstated.
Motion is made.
I will second.
Second on the motion. Should we do a roll call on this?
Can we get a question?
Oh, question, I'm sorry. Councilman Pizzillo.
What's going to determine when that road is done? Because the way it's worded right now, there's not a date in there. It has 6 months after the road is completed. So I guess my question is, what will determine that as opposed to date specific?
The City of Engineering standards require a final letter of acceptance for all work, both developer or CIP driven. So we would have a final letter of acceptance once it is everything is constructed.
So that's standard usage of when it's done. That
Absolutely.
will. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question, please.
Yes, Councilman Campbell.
This question is to, I believe, Councilmember Stiff, who has written out this motion. When you said church services and 10 special events, is it clear enough that it is all church services and 10 special events?
I'm going to let you answer that. You have it in front of you.
Councilmember Campbell, yeah, it is clear because the way that I've written it is it's church services, comma, special events and programs not to exceed 10 per year.
Okay, thank you.
Follow the notification to the Wade Acres neighborhood, comma, and to facilitate.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Osborne.
I'm sorry, the city manager.
Mayor, if I may, one of the things I brought up, mentioned earlier, so we have 6 months after completion, which was explained by the engineering director. I would, for council consideration, have in there the verbiage or the later of December 31st, 2018, only for this reason. If there's an investment by the church, they at least have a date certain that they can go to, so I think that might help.
Or, can you restate that, please?
Yes, it would be 6 months after completion of the road construction or the later of December 31st, 2018. Which whenever is the later, if you will. That's what I was trying to say.
I'm willing to make that change to my motion.
Okay, so we've had a change by the motion and a second on the change. Councilman Osborne.
Thank you. I know that I just wanted to express my appreciation to the Planning and Zoning Commission because I know that their duty they took, and I appreciate that. And I think that as a council, our duty is to find solution, and I believe that this does do that. I'm sure neither party is real thrilled with this, but I think this is a compromise I can live with, and that I will approve this.
Well, I have to say it's well said because it is. Nobody's going to get their way on this one, and we had to find a way to get there. I can still see one more council person looking at me. So, Councilman Holman, you have the floor.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking and I guess I didn't figure it because it's Saturday, but I was thinking when we talked about how much it would cost to have a police directing as one of the solutions. If you take the number of times the church is holding services and events, it would seem to me that it's about 3 times with the $25,000, dividing the number of events into the $25,000, that it would be significantly cheaper to have a policeman directing traffic. Because we're talking about 2 years here, 2.5 years. I mean, they're just
4-hour minimum.
Yeah.
So you.
Well, but we're talking about $80.
Well, that'll be up to the church then.
Well, but I'm just saying, it just to me seems that there's a.
Sure.
That's where my mind goes to looking at
nothing
the numbers
wrong with
and
that.
figuring
Nothing
it
wrong
out.
with your suggestion. Nothing at all. Any other comments on this before are we ready to vote? All right, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Holman? Aye. Vice Mayor Loretano?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
I want to thank both parties for coming tonight. I know you're not all going to walk away happy and smiling. But we were put in a position, we had to figure out something, and this is as close as we could come to a compromise that we felt was helpful to both sides. So thank you very much, and thank you for those that came up and testified. Okay, I've lost my way, so here. Okay, we're on 7.2, is that correct? Thank you very much. All right, the next item is 7.2. It's a public hearing to consider the proposed increase in the primary property tax levy. I'm opening the public meeting. Budget and Research Manager Lori Wiggenroth will make a presentation on the truth in taxation and adoption of the final budget together. We will vote separately on each item. Hello.
Hello. You ready? All righty. Oops, I pushed the wrong button. All righty. This kind of outlines the procedure here today. We have this again at the end, so we'll go through it then. As you mentioned, we'll be doing the presentation on both of the items at this point in time. I'll go through kind of the public process that we've followed to get to this point in time. There are a few changes to the tentative budget that you adopted on May 23rd that I'll review. I'll talk about the two major items that you'll be voting on tonight. One is the truth and taxation portion of the primary property tax, and then the other is the overall budget. And then just a quick reminder that we'll be back on July 11th, 2 weeks from now, to do the final step in the annual budget process of adopting the property tax levy. Essentially, we've gone through 7 either work sessions or council retreats to go over various aspects of the budget process. We've got a lot of feedback through that process and made a lot of progress to get to this point. We held a public budget forum on May 4th to share the budget with the public. You did do the tentative adoption on May 23rd. Since then, there's been a series of 2 different publications. On June 10th and on June 17th, the Truth in Taxation, the statutorily required publications with regard to truth in taxation were done, as well as press releases on those items. And then what's called the state budget forums, the kind of the official review look at the budget, was also published in the newspaper twice. And then there's been website postings throughout the budget process about how we were progressing and what was happening. First, I'll go over the changes since the tentative was acted on. 2 items have been approved by council since May 23rd. One was the community paramedicine grant for $125,000 that has been included in the final budget before you. In addition, you approved covering some gap long-term disability insurance for the public safety members of our organization, and that has also been incorporated into the final budget before you. We also identified 2 additional items that we could address before adopting the budget. One was an error in my area. We have changed how we budget for the stadium capital replacement. We got half of the transaction in, but we didn't get it into the fund where those expenditures occur. So this is not a change in what was intended by the actions that were taken so far. It was just a mistake of leaving half the transaction out. The other item is we've been carrying on the supplemental request, an item related to taking over the container management in the solid waste area. We've been working with Public Works and have come to what we believe the budget should be to manage that program. And so the total program cost is $563,000 or $564,000. That includes the position that was approved this year. And the major portion of those expenses are the containers themselves. And we reduced the contract by $700,000 as a result. So we're reducing the budget for sanitation by $219,000 from what you approved as part of the tentative adoption. And of course, we cannot increase the city's budget from the $254 million So we reduced the potential improvement district appropriation by an equal amount. So the first action you're going to be considering this evening is the truth in taxation increase. Truth in taxation is an element of state law. The property tax is both in state constitution and those state statutes. The Constitution allows a 2% growth in the levy of the primary property tax, and that's the portion of the property tax that supports ongoing expenses. However, state statute says if you want to use any of that 2% growth, you need to go through this truth in taxation process of advertising that change, as well as taking the action that we're asking that you take today. And so this chart just kind of walks through what that calculation is. Essentially, this year, fiscal year 16's property tax levy was $7.8 million. What truth in taxation says, what would your rate be if you were just going to levy that $7.8 million again? In other words, not take any growth, any of the 2% allowed growth. And that would come up with a rate of $1.1371. By taking the 2%, our rate goes to 1.1598, and our levy goes up from the 7.8 million to the 8.2. That growth from 7.8 to 8.2 includes both the rate increase for the 2% plus the properties plus new construction. So this is just, again, a reminder of what the property, comparing the property tax levies and rates for this year and what's proposed in the 17 budget or included in the tentative budget. And then the property tax for Goodyear's property tax on a home with a $100,000 assessed valuation, if it did not change its assessed valuation, would go from $187 to $186.23. And just again to show you the history of this is just a picture of the kind of the history of our property taxation. You can see that we're still well below the peak of property taxation back in fiscal year 10 with our combined levies. Now I'll walk through the kind of an overview of the budget that you're approving or being requested to approve. This is a $254 million budget, of which you can see the components of it. About 35% is from general fund revenues. It's made up of the enterprise funds at about 17% of the total. The $65 million in fund balances is primarily associated with the general fund contingency, the one-time dollars that are rolling over from this year into next year to support the general fund, and then the carryovers and the carryovers that are carrying over from this year into next year. In terms of looking at the budget in terms of how it's being proposed for use, we'll look at it in a couple different ways here. This is a look by fund, so about almost half of next year's budget is funded by the general fund. About another third or so, or a little bit more than a third, is funded by our various enterprise funds. Capital funds account for almost a quarter of our budget. Capital funds are primarily the impact fees, as well as the water bonds and a few other miscellaneous funds. You can also look at the budget and how it's going to be used, or the types of expenses it's going to be paying for. So about a little over 40% of the budget goes to the day-to-day operations of the city. About 30% goes to the capital improvement program. Again, those capital funds and general funds and enterprise funds that are used for major projects, such as building water plant expansions and those types of things. Debt service makes up about 11%. I'm going to show you a little bit more on the CIP and the capital projects, as well as the operating budget. So this shows you that $110 million of the day-to-day operating budget by department. And so this is all funds. So when you use all funds, the Public Works Department is by far our largest department. That's because it includes the water, wastewater utilities, the sanitation fund, the fleet, and then the facilities operations are their major areas of operation. Then police, fire, parks. So it just gives you a sense of where the operating budget goes in terms of day-to-day operations of the city. And then just to give you a look at debt service, how it's divvied up. Again, the debt service piece of the puzzle, the item that's listed as secondary property tax, is the portion that's funded from secondary property tax for voter-approved bond projects. Then water and wastewater enterprise funds pay their debt service from their own resources. Here's another breakdown of the CIP, or that capital improvement portion of the program. About a third is from general funds. About a third is from the utility or impact fees. And then water and wastewater fund significant portions of the capital program. As we developed the budget and the changes to the budget, we went through, there was a couple of areas of priority. We all paid attention to the citizen attitude survey that said, let's spend our money on parks, both improving our parks and adding recreation opportunities. And through the council discussions and the work sessions and in the retreats, the messages were take care of what we have, make sure we're taking care of public safety, plan for those future operating costs that we know are out there on the horizon as we build new projects, and then continue to attract, develop, and retain a skilled workforce. So that's a very quick summary of what we're here for today and how we've gotten here. Where we are in the process is we are in our public hearing, where you would be taking public comment on both the budget and the truth in taxation. After that, you'd close the public hearing, act on the truth and taxation item, then you go into a special meeting to act on the budget. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing. And could I have a motion and a second to approve the truth in taxation increase of $160,291 for the fiscal year of 2016-17? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion from Councilman Osborne and a second from Councilman Pizzillo. Open for council discussion. Councilman Pizzillo.
Laura, a quick question for you. Can you go back to the levy? Was it slide 7? Just a general question on that secondary debt service. It's gone up from fiscal year 16 to 17, but I recall we haven't issued any new debt, correct?
Correct. We have not issued any new debt.
So is this a backloaded debt payment schedule? Is the reason why it's going up?
Yeah, there's just slight increases over time. You will see a reduction in secondary property tax backed debt coming in the future. There is a few items that will be paid off soon, but it is just how the debt was issued. Okay. And this did not assume anything for the refinancings or refundings that were approved, so we will probably end up spending less this year once those refundings are finalized.
So when the refundings, this is going to probably actually go down at 4.9 as a result in this fiscal year.
It will not go down materially in 17, but it will be going down.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? No, it's Vice Mayor.
First of all, I want to thank you for all your hard work on the truth in taxation, and I have become a devotee to the levy, thanks to Councilmember Pizzillo, that I think it's very important. It's very important for the public to realize our levy is still not up to the rates of 2009, 2010. So we still have not recovered our property taxes from the Great Recession. But I want to thank you for all the hard work, and a lot of that is new construction. Is that correct?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, I believe it's $161,000 of the increase is associated with the 2%, and so approximately $300,000 is an increase associated with the new construction.
So those are the new homes, the new residents.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilman Campbell, anything you want to say?
No, thank you.
All right, great. Well, then we're going to go ahead and have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
What are we voting on?
Oh, we're voting on? We're voting on
Truth and taxation.
Truth and taxation. I thought I had it. Can I
put them
have
all
a
together?
motion?
I just wanted to make sure that we're
yeah. All right, let me repeat it so you know it.
voting on that.
Did you want to do that? Do you want me to do that? Go ahead. Did you ask the city clerk to repeat something?
No, there was just clarification that what you're voting on is the truth and taxation portion.
Okay, thank you. So
Yes, they
now
did
we
make a
can do
motion.
Roll call vote?
There is a motion on the table.
All right, thank you.
Roll call. Okay, let me start again. Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. Now, I will recess the regular meeting and convene a special meeting per ARS 42-17105 to determine and adopt estimates of the proposed expenditures for the purposes stated in the published proposal. I have a call to order to the special meeting. We are all present. We will now consider adopting the final budget. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Will the city clerk please read Resolution 16-1765 by title only, please?
Adopt resolution number 16-1765, determining and adopting the final estimates of proposed expenditures by the City of Goodyear for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2016 and ending June 30th, 2017.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Pizzillo and a second by Councilman Holman. Open for council discussion. Councilman Stipp.
I'm not going to reiterate the very long speech that I made the night that we looked at the tentative budget on why I don't support it in its entirety. Having said that, and having voted that way on the first one, I need to talk about the TNT document and vote first, and then the subsequent vote that's going to happen in a month from now. Presumably, if the tentative budget vote goes the way tonight, if the tentative budget vote is an indication of how it will go tonight, I will yet again be in the minority on this vote. However, once the council adopts a budget, it is my responsibility to fund that budget. Therefore, I would be really compelled to vote in favor of funding it later or in July, which is one of the things you have to do with this property tax levy change as well. So these votes are going to sound contradictory coming out of my mouth, but I think that was worth some explanation. My hope is that I am completely wrong in what's happening with the economy, and that this thing that we're experiencing these last couple of days is only temporary. But I'm hopeful that we're not going to have a lot harder work to do in the future.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councilman Councilman Pizzillo, excuse me.
Interchangeable.
I know.
Just for the general public that's watching this, I know you're probably not going to see a whole lot of discussion tonight on that permanent budget, but there's been a lot of discussion to date and many meetings covering the very details on this. And, like Stipp, there may be some things in the current budget that I personally had some issue with, but, I had my say and was vetted, and I will back this budget.
Great. Vice Mayor Loretano?
I appreciate all the members of the council because we had some really late nights that we worked through a lot of these issues.
Certainly did.
And we had a lot of discussion. And I respect everyone's voice and everyone's opinion there. And I think that's what's really important, that we were able to discuss those. I look at Bill as our cheap uncle at the side there, and he makes some really good points. I may not always agree with him, but I do listen to your points. Yeah, you're the cheap uncle that tells us, don't spend that. Here, let's look at this. And it was like last year when you and Joe sat there and went through the CIP to help us get a traffic light in Estrella. Without us working as a team, and I think this budget is a team, is there everything here that I would like to see? No. Are there some things I wish we could work a little bit more? Do I share many of the same fears Councilmember Stipp does, especially in the last 2 days when the stock market's tanked 1,000 points? Yes, I am very concerned about a recession, and there's a prediction of a recession. But when I look at the budget and I look at the fact that it's 254, and in 2008, 2009 it was 405, I think we're doing very conservative. We're taking baby steps. We're working and trying to meet the needs that we can. And I think what we all discovered is we've got lots of needs and lots of wants from our citizens, and we're doing our best to meet them with the limited resources we have. And so I do appreciate everybody's voice. So I will be supporting this budget. It's not everything I want, but I think overall it's a very sound budget, and the city manager and his staff has done a very good job of bringing us a very sound, conservative budget that we are living within our means. So I will be voting for it.
Thank you. Councilman Campbell?
Yes, I agree with what Councilmember Pizzillo and even Councilmember Stipp said, as well as our Vice Mayor. Everything we want is not in that budget, but I think we've done an extraordinary job to manage the money that we have, to figure out how to best use our funds. We are protecting our residents with more police. We're taking care of our parks. We're reminding them that their quality of life is very important to us. And I really feel that as a council we have worked extraordinarily well. And as you may know, we all don't agree with some of the votes, but we all stand together and we're doing the best we can do for our residents. And we know our residents appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman Campbell. Councilman Osborne?
I stated what I wanted to at the time.
All right. Councilman Holman?
Well, I agree pretty much with whatever is said, what has been said, in that we work very hard together, and this has been vetted over the last 6 months. This is a kind of the culmination of a whole lot of work by staff, and we thank you for that, and by council to do our homework and come back with legitimate discussions and sharing of our ideas. I'm very proud of that. I think we have a unique council in that we have 7 people that are educated and articulate and do share our viewpoints. And I think that that's very important, especially to a process like that. So I thank each of you for being who you are and what you bring to the table, agree or disagree. And I will be voting in favor of this budget.
Well, thank you all. And as your mayor, I really appreciate how you work together. I just want to say I'm excited because I know that we're giving the citizens some activity in the next few years, things they've asked for, because they were very clear in the citizen survey. So you should be proud of yourself. You should also feel good about the public safety in addition there. And that was another thing that the public wanted. And that we're going to take care of our assets. So we're not going to be stuck like some cities have been, that you don't take care of your assets so that you're not put in a vulnerable position. So with that, how about a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Homan?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 6-1.
Good. So now we're going to reconvene the regular meeting, and we're at 7.3 to consider an amendment to the Lucero Planned Area Development. Planner 2, Alex Latinsky, to present. Alex? You've been up here a lot this last week, haven't you?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The Lucero PAD, like you meant, or I don't know if you had mentioned it, but was before you on June 13th and continued until tonight's meeting. The Lucero PAD was requested to replace the Callisto PAD amendment, which originally had amended the Estrella Phase 1 PAD. In 1986, the Estrella Phase 1 PAD entitled the land to 988 units. And in 2013, the Callisto PAD amendment approved the PAD to allow for 1,250 units. The proposed Lucero PAD amendment maintains the majority of what was approved with the Callisto PAD along with the 1,250 units. That's not being changed. Um, the document on the screen is the amended version, which shows the red lines. Most of you may remember my presentation previously. I did want to just outline the request once again. The land use plan and table has been amended and refined. The development standards and some lot sizes have been added to allow for variety within Lucero, and the commercial zoning has been added to allow for a future welcome center, hopefully a coffee shop, and some other community amenities. I do want to scroll to the stipulations to just clarify a few of the stipulations that have been requested to be amended. Stipulation 20 originally stated neighborhood greens shall not be used for stormwater retention purposes, and they have requested to clarify that neighborhood greens may be designed as landscape depressions that in part will capture and retain their own stormwater runoff. So originally, or oftentimes we see retention being sent throughout the community and into one giant retention basin or retention area. So they just wanted to have some clarification that they may use the neighborhood greens for some detention, but it's not going to be focusing on one neighborhood green for the bulk of the community. And that concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions, and Pete Tykin, Jeff Denzak are here as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? All right. Will the city clerk please read ordinance 16-1333 by title only, please?
Adopt ordinance number 16-1333, rezoning approximately 617 acres, generally located on the west side of Estrella Parkway, south of the Estrella Star Tower, to the intersection of Estrella Parkway and Cotton Lane by amending Section 2C of ordinance number 87-217 as amended, and ordinance number 13-1288, which approved the Callisto Planned Area Development for the property by adopting the Lucero Planned Area Development Amendment dated March 18, 2016, to govern the development of the property, amending the zoning map of the City of Goodyear, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, a second?
So moved.
Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Stiff and a second by Councilman Pizzillo. Open for council discussion. Councilman Stiff.
Oh, all right. I don't know that this is a question as much as a statement, so settle down, Alex. You don't have to come up. Generally, and I can't scroll through this fast enough to see how many stipulations, et cetera, there are. This project is very unique and a change to what we've always done, which I find exciting because we need some change in the city. However, we have, for the last few years, been making kind of a big deal about not using neighborhood greens for stormwater retention. And that has been, we talked about that with parks. We talked about not using those spaces because after it rains, they become unusable for essentially weeks. And we have a significant drainage problem. And to have this stipulation removed and changed significantly really disturbs me. I don't know if it's enough to disturb me to say no to the whole project, but as a council, this goes directly against everything that we've been talking about and trying to maintain usable green spaces. And I'm a little shocked that staff was okay with just eliminating that, given the priority that we put back on it a number of years ago.
Can we have someone from staff come up and talk about that a little bit? Let's do that. Okay. 3 people are standing, so we're going to get really a lot from this. Okay. Just announce who you are for the public, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Stipp. I'm Katie Wilkin, Planning Manager. Hopefully it can provide a little clarification. The stipulation is just meant to clarify that stormwater that may be generated by the site, so say there's a ramada or basketball court, can be retained. So there might be a very small retention facility for the park itself, if that makes sense. But any off-site drainage wouldn't be going to these neighborhood greens.
Does that help? Or do you think this way this is?
No, I do not want to. I love the I shouldn't say love the project. Okay. I like the challenge that this is bringing to us as a city to do something different. I really appreciate the definition. That probably would have been helpful when I asked the question a week. I asked myself, but this is the year they asked, so we'll get it done.
Thank you. Any other questions? Vice Mayor.
I want to say I think this is a very good project for Estrella. I like the addition of the coffee shop. I know this was originally came before us in 2013, so it's been percolating out there for quite a while. And I think this will actually help bring the density because I do hear a lot about we need restaurants, we need, people up there, the bike shop, the coffee shop, a new home finding center. I think that will really add the density we need up there and the different products we need up there as well. Because when we do talk about Estrella, we do talk about that we are rather remote. Without opening a can of worms, because we're not noticed for that, but there was a citizen that asked a question, and my understanding is our community partners, and I wanted to address it. I believe we've worked very well with Estrella for the last, how many years, since the 80s, and we are really good partners with them. But since that was asked last time, and I know we can't go into it because it's not noticed.
Oh, I don't know. He's rolling his eyes, so I'm not sure.
Can we at least get an update without getting me in trouble?
The lawyer was rolling his eyes.
I mean, can we get just a brief update? Well, it was asked last time.
All right. I'll put the city manager on the spot there.
Okay, so I think where you're going with this would be in terms of how well we or how we work with the current developer, which is Newland. And back to the Vice Mayor's point, we absolutely have been working closely with the developer for many years. And they, 22,000 acres is a lot of land, and we have to have a long-term relationship with Newland Communities. Talking to Bill Olson, who heads that up for Newland, he has talked about the pro forma takes him out still another 25, 27 years. So that's a lot of development that will be occurring. As such, I do know that there's an interest, and council has talked about it before regarding fire service. And talking to Bill Olson this week, and there has been an understanding that the bones of an agreement are in place. It can be argued that some of those elements may or may not apply. Fact of the matter is some of the one of the partners, if you will, back to the earlier agreement, is no longer there. So in Cantamia, for example, it's AV Homes that would be part of any discussions. We have reached out, and we continue. I say reach out. That's not really accurate to say it that way. We work regularly with Newland Communities. In this case, we are going to work with them on fire service. There's a commitment, again, from Bill Olson, who heads that up for Newland, AV Homes, and the city. We're continuing to talk about how we can get additional fire service for the future. Very important for that community as it continues to grow. And council is aware that we have a fire station analysis that's going on right now to look at triggers and thresholds and timing and locations for fire stations to serve the entire community, not just Estrella area, and that is in place also. That will be finished in October, and then we'll be coming back to council with specifics as far as where we go forward with fire stations, if you will. We do have fire stations in the capital improvement plan, so it's not if we build them, it's when, and that continues to be looked at in terms of timing every single year.
And I appreciate the update. And again, I apologize. I didn't want to go too far afield, but I knew that was a concern. And I've seen such a good relationship, and I've never seen any roadblocks from the developers up there. And I think we work very well together, so I do appreciate that. And if I thought we didn't, you'd be hearing a whole different tune from me. But I do appreciate it, and I think it's a very great project that's going to bring the density that we need in Estrella, and we actually need in the city.
In the city.
Yeah.
Put that, absolutely. Councilman Osborne, anything?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the Vice Mayor bringing up the fire service issue. That's something that did concern me, and I do feel confident in the conversations that have occurred with our partners at Newland and Estrella. And just overall, I think that we as a city, and we've certainly been discussing it as we're going through the budget season. And that was how are we going to, we see the need surfacing far before what we had planned for fire services. And so it's going to be when, where, and the money picture of how. And I think that even this next, budget season where we actually put operating cost set-asides in the budget because we are planning for what's about to occur to us out there. And so I think that our citizens should understand that we are looking ahead, and safety is number one to Goodyear. And so so I feel confident that the solution is coming. And I know it's not tonight that we have that answer, but it's going to be fairly soon. And I'll feel better. I know we'll all feel better when we have some answers.
Well, we know it's in the process.
Yes,
so
exactly.
We know it's not.
And but for Estrella and for Newland, I do appreciate that, especially since the recession thing, they have brought things to us in change. Because whether it's what people are looking for nowadays in home sites or in amenities, they're open to what people want, and they're looking at that. And I think that's important because especially when this is a long-term master plan community, you're going to have to be flexible in the way your development is. It can't be the same project that was brought to us back in the 80s, early 90s. It's just not feasible. And I even hate to say this, but that's the same kind of thing that we've seen about the mall. You have to go with what's going to be sustainable, and so I do appreciate and I appreciate actually Newland for having patience with us as we worked out some of these issues. Thanks.
I'm not sure. Did I ask you, Councilman Campbell?
No, but I would like to say something, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, you may.
I need to assure everyone in the city, not only just Estrella, but this council, every single one of us, takes this issue very, very seriously. And we are continually looking at what we need to do to improve fire service, police service, and any service that we give to the residents. But we really appreciate the cooperation and the determination of Newland communities to continually invest in our city and to continually invest in Estrella, because we together, working together, we're going to be able to have the beautiful community up there that we all want. That being said, rest assured that we don't know when we're going to have an answer, but we are working on it. And you just have to believe that we're doing everything that we can. This is not something that can be solved overnight, but we are working on it. And
Thank you very
that's all I
much.
have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Campbell. Well, I think you've all said it all for me. Newland has been a great partner. And everybody will say, if you talk about partner, you think, oh, you just give them everything they want. And, so we give and take. We give and take, and they sit at the table, and we have great discussions. And I think one can verify that by driving up there and driving through the neighborhoods, because it is spectacular. And when visitors come and when future businesses, when some of the businesses visit, they take a drive up there. It's very impressive. So we're glad they're there. So could I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Councilmember Holman? Aye. Vice Mayor Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Great. Next item of business is to consider the community funding allocations for the fiscal year 16-17. Neighborhood Services Coordinator Christina Plant will present. Good evening, Christina.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Oops. So yes, I'm here to present the fiscal year 2016-17 community funding recommendations being forwarded from the Community Funding Subcommittee. Just a little background for the public. Goodyear's community funding program was created in 2000 to continue social and community services that are needed for our residents and to provide direct or indirect benefit to Goodyear residents. The focus of benefiting programs ranges from arts and quality of life to core human and social services. Some highlights for the first 6 months of outcomes from the fiscal year 15-16 awardees include over 9,000 Goodyear residents benefiting from services. The Goodyear Lions Club provided vision screenings to 871 Goodyear children and an additional 460 Avondale children at various local schools, including 8 elementary schools that were not previously served. So us funding them allowed them to substantially expand their vision screening program. Helping Families in Need assisted 241 Goodyear residents in applying for health care and or nutrition assistance, including other state benefits such as TANF. And Mission of Mercy provided primary medical care for 96 Goodyear residents. And the Southwest Lending Closet continues to grow, loaning durable medical equipment at no charge to 891 Goodyear residents, in addition to other Southwest Valley residents that they serve, which is up 30% from the previous year, just counting the Goodyear residents. Our 12-month report deadline is July 18th, and I'll do a summary of highlights from all of those that were funded and provide that to you and a council member once those have been received. So this year's process, applications opened March 29th. They were due on May 1st. The application was posted on the Goodyear website homepage and on Goodyear social media. Past applicants, members of the Faith Community Roundtable, local media contacts, and local and regional nonprofit associations were notified via email, and applications were evaluated based on the number of Goodyear residents served and whether the service is unique in Goodyear or replicated by another organization. We anticipated having a budget of $114,400 available, which was in the budget that you just approved. So we got 35 applications, which included 7 first-time applicants. They were asking for a combined total of $284,595, which is a lot more than we were able to fund. They came from health and human service providers, churches, shelters, food banks, people who deliver victim services, medical, mental, and behavioral health providers, and services for children and seniors. 27 applications are being advanced for funding, and I would like to thank our subcommittee members, Councilmember Osborne, Councilmember Pizzillo, and Councilmember Campbell. They certainly had their work cut out for them. So the following is a list of those applicants being recommended for funding. A New Leaf Inc. For $5,000, Agua Fria Food and Clothing Bank for $2,000, Aid to Adoption of Special Kids $2,000, All Faith Community Services $15,000, Alzheimer's Association Desert Southwest Chapter $5,000. Area Agency on Aging, $5,200. Arizona Opera Company, $1,000. Benavia, $1,500. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Central Arizona, $1,500. Boys and Girls Club of Metropolitan Phoenix, $5,000. Catitude Gallery Studios, $1,000. CAS, Central Arizona Shelter Services, $10,000. Child Help, $10,000. AZ 211, Community Information and Referral Services, $3,700. Father Matters, $1,500. Free Arts for Abused Children of Arizona, $1,500. Hattie Larlam, $1,000. Helping Families in Need, $3,500. Homeless Youth Connections, $3,000. Mission of Mercy, $3,000. New Life Center, $10,000. Sky Kids Incorporated, $1,000. Southwest Lending Closet, $10,000. Southwest Valley Literacy Association, $1,000. St. Mary's Food Bank Alliance, $5,000. Teen Lifeline, $5,000. West Valley Youth Orchestra, $1,000. So tonight I'm looking to you to approve the recommended allocations for fiscal year 16-17 community funding.
Thank you very much. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? All right. Could I have a motion a second to approve the recommended allocations for FY 2016-17 community funding? Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
I heard a motion by Councilman Osborne, a second by Councilman Holman. Open for council discussion. Anybody on this side? Councilman Osborne.
Just wanted to thank Christina. You always put together a very thorough, detailed description of all of the nonprofits, and I appreciate all that. I know that it's always difficult when we go through such need that's out there and limited funds, and I'm glad we can do what we can.
Thank you. Councilman Campbell.
I just would like to say that we are very blessed to be able to offer assistance to some of these agencies who give services to our residents. I want to thank everyone who applied. I'm sorry we don't have enough money to fund everyone, but we really did a good job of funding those agencies who do direct care or provide direct services to our own residents. I do want to thank Christina for shepherding all of the applications together and having them so that they were so easily identifiable by the committee. And with that, I certainly support all that we have selected to give money to.
Thank you. Councilman Pizzillo.
And again, I appreciate all the front-end work that you did putting the book together for us and herding the cats so we're all in one direction when we're working through this process. But again, a lot of work up front. Simplify it so we get, and again, you know me, I like the executive summary, so you have something there that we can glean from. If we need more, we go into the detail. And I appreciate that effort because I know it took a lot to put that book together. So thank you. Vice Mayor?
I want to thank you as well for all your hard work. It's very rewarding to see this and see how many people we can help. And I want to thank, as Joe said, the cats for all their hard work on the committee too, going through all those applications. So we really do appreciate it.
Councilman Holman.
Well, I too want to thank Christina. You do a great job with this particular effort because it's a challenge. But I want to thank our subcommittee as well because they have to take the responsibility for the things that they're recommending to us. There are some great organizations on this list. I think we're very, very fortunate to have this number of social services in the area that are directly assisting our residents in Goodyear. That's not the way it always is, but we have some very strong agencies that need this kind of help where they can spend the money where they need it and not necessarily have it directed to only one program or only one effort. So I commend the committee for performing in the way they do. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to second and third the committee. Thank you so much. You did a great job this year. It's really a pleasure to read the report. But Christina, thank you. We are extremely fortunate to have you as our service coordinator. You do wonderful work with the neighborhoods, and you keep us all in tune and updated. So I just want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
You've been with us for a while, and I've been meaning to tell you that every time you come up. But tonight, just this presentation says it all. So thank you very much. Okay, so let's vote for it. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. So we'll go down to 7.5, and it's the last on the business to consider designating an area as the single central business district of the city of Goodyear. And we have our Economic Development Director, Michelle Laurie, to present. Michelle?
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to be with you this evening to present for your consideration the establishment of a single central business district in relation to the government property lease excise tax in the Arizona revised statutes. So let's begin by just briefly discussing the government property lease excise tax program, otherwise called GPLET or GPLAT. You'll probably recognize it. The program was established in the state of Arizona as a redevelopment tool to initiate development in what is designated as a blighted area of a community by reducing the project's operating costs and by replacing the real property tax with an excise tax. Under state statute, an excise tax is established for the building type of use and is calculated on the gross square footage of the building. The program requires that the land and the improvements be conveyed to a government entity and leased back for private use. A provision of the program also allows the excise tax rate to be abated for the first 8 years after the certificate of occupancy on the building is issued under certain conditions, which is the reason that I'm here in front of you this evening. But first, I wanted to review with Council a bit of Goodyear's history related to the GPLAT program. In our redevelopment area. In 2004, Goodyear established its redevelopment area, which is the area designated as blighted in a community. In 2007, Cancer Treatment Centers of America develops in Goodyear as a GPLET project. In 2010, the Arizona State Legislature makes some changes to the GPLET program. And in 2014, Goodyear reauthorizes its redevelopment area, in which each community is required to update every 10 years. So in addition to some changes to increase transparency and to increase review and notification of taxing jurisdictions, there were really three major changes enacted by the legislature in 2010, and those were the rate structure for the excise tax was increased depending on what type the building was. Secondly, a maximum lease term of 25 years was instituted. And finally, the concept of the single central business district was established to create a boundary in which that 8-year abatement provision could be leveraged, and that's what we're talking about today. And this, I should add that these are only future programs going forward. Anything done before 2010 was grandfathered in the old system. So to provide the 8-year abatement provision, within a single central business district, the following requirements were specified in the legislation. There must be one central business district per city. The CBD, as it's called, must be geographically compact and contiguous. It must be located entirely within the slum and blighted area, so that's synonymous with our redevelopment area. And it cannot be larger than the greater of either 5% of the total land area within exterior boundaries of the city or 640 acres, whichever's larger. And then once the resolution is approved by the city, as we're asking this evening, there's a 1-year waiting period for one of these deals to be made for the 8-year abatement. So the recommendation this evening by staff is that the council designate the entire existing redevelopment area as the single central business district. This designation for the redevelopment satisfies all the provisions that we just went over in the previous slide. And the resulting agreements, one thing I wanted to make sure to note to you is any resulting agreements through this change must be considered on a case-by-case basis. And all agreements must be individually approved by council. So tonight is really just the establishment of the single central business district. And now just available for questions
Great.
and discussion.
Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak? Or will the city clerk then, excuse me, please read Resolution 16-1767 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 16-1767 designating an area as the single central business district of the city of Goodyear.
Thank you. Could I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second. I heard a motion by Vice Mayor Loretano and a second by Councilman Stipp. Open for council discussion. Councilman Vazillo.
Just one general question, there, Michelle. I notice part of that area is the airport. How does that? I assume you got the working relationship with Mr. Cousin. Was it Husbands?
Joe Husband.
Joe Husbands.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that happens there, I assume, would have to go through their city council as well.
That's a really good question. I believe that yes, it certainly would have to because they own the property. Yes.
Okay. That's all I was kind of curious about. Thank you.
Next on this side, Councilman Stipp.
Michelle, can you go back to that map,
Oh, sure.
please? How big is this?
So it's very interesting. The
0.5, okay.
Yeah, so it's about 4,300 acres, and the city of Goodyear is that 122,374. So it's actually 3.5% of the Goodyear's total land area. So
Yep, you clipped through that so fast I didn't
I'm
see that.
sorry.
No, that's okay. So my question is Yuma, south of Yuma, and Estrella Parkway, basically that ballpark area. Is there a reason that was excluded?
I think that was the redevelopment area when that was created. So I'm not really sure if there was a no. Okay.
Yes, Mayor and Councilmember Stipp. A little bit of history. For the record, this is one of my last official acts as the Economic Development Director back in 2004. So aware of the boundaries on this. It was, the reason that area was excluded is that was going to be part of the city center area. It is, you butt up against that. So we thought that would have an opportunity for different types of applications for city center. So a lot of that was property that's owned by CNMP and then some by the city of Goodyear. But we came to a point where we were really trying to restrict the boundaries, pulling in what we could, and tried to line it along Bullard Wash. Seemed to be a good place for demarcation, if you will.
Is there an advantage to us including it now?
Including now,
if we were to put it in there as a central business district.
Yes, this one was very difficult to get back in the day. There is a lot of work that goes into establishing a redevelopment area. Working with the citizens who are impacted in some of the historic areas, there was a lot of due diligence. We had to go to create this district. To amend it, we'd have to check on that. I think there's quite a process involved in trying to expand it at this point.
Okay, so.
But we can look at what that would take to expand the development district.
Well, I guess my question, and I realize that there's a connection. I just didn't realize that that it was a mirror between the redevelopment area and the central business district. The impression that I'm getting is this is a quick expanded.
Yeah, just to clarify on that, it actually has to be entirely within the redevelopment area. So for us, it was kind of a no-brainer. Let's just include the actual redevelopment area as the central single business district.
But it can't be. It can't be outside of it, is that
right? It has to be contained entirely within that area.
And contiguous.
Yeah, and contiguous, but entirely within that area. So the only other thing we can do is at some point change the redevelopment area, and then you're right, exactly.
Okay. I just didn't have a very clear understanding of that, so thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Councilman Osborne?
Well, mine was close to Bill's. I was kind of wondering, I mean, first of all, I hate it that we have to call slum and blight. That just
I know. It's a technical term, and
I know. And then we include our, Reds and Indians development complex within there, and I'm like, why is that in there? I understand other parts, but why is that? And I guess the other question I really had was, so in the future, and this is really more on process, case by case, you stated. When do the school districts weigh in on some of this?
And that is one of the other changes that was made to the legislation when I kind of referred to notification and that sort of thing. So there actually was, and Mr. City Manager, let me know if I'm incorrect on this, but from my research, I learned that there was actually no notification requirement previously. Now there is a notification requirement that you must notify all taxing entities 60 days prior to approval, economic fiscal benefit analysis 30 days prior, and simple majority vote of board. So that you have to let them know, but there is no consent that they have to provide.
But I'd want the city manager, can you address to CTCA, because there was a process there, okay? I just want you all to know that.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Exactly. With Cancer Treatment Center of America, before that was actually consummated, we did approach the school districts, Avondale Elementary, Agua Fria High School districts, to let them know what we were planning on doing. I will tell you that they were extremely supportive isn't a strong enough word, because they saw the value of this coming into the community for what was being really at an assessed value on farm property, now getting this in here, which included the 8-year abatement. And I believe we have a 40-year term on this one back in the day when that was still allowed. But huge support for the school district. But as always, even on foreign trade zones, we sit down with the school districts in advance before we come to council.
I'm sorry, one last question. And I know that there was, and I don't recall what it's called, and maybe it has to do with foreign trade zones, but there was something that, there was a tax.
I think you're talking about the pilot agreement? Payment in lieu of taxes? Does that sound familiar? No,
Maybe.
Sorry,
Maybe it is.
Okay.
No, maybe it is. We can talk about that later. Because this is more about process, not necessarily about this evening's. I get why you have to identify the area. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other? So one question. So CTCA property that is left to, they're going to continue to develop, that's grandfathered?
No. So
Okay.
the deal that was made with the CTCA is grandfathered in, but that property that's still there, any deal to go forward from here are going to be required the stipulations.
Okay.
But that property is included in the single central business
Okay. I
district.
knew it was included. I just wanted to know if it was going to be different. Okay. Well, thanks for the discussion. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Holman?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Loretano?
Aye.
Councilmember Osborne?
Aye.
Councilmember Pizzillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Stipp?
Aye.
Mayor Lord?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Great. Well, Molly, thank you so much for staying on the line. So I'm going to go to you. Do you have any comments or accommodations or current events you want to talk about?
No, but I will next week.
She will next week.
Next week. All right, good. Well, you have a great time at the conference, and congratulations again about being recognized.
Thank you very much.
All right. Anybody else at the dais? Yes. Councilman Osborne?
Well, I just wanted to say that there's a great deal of excitement around the Palm Valley Park rehab. It's really awesome, and I would like to give congratulations and good job to Nathan and his team over there in Parks and Rec, because that's quite a unique feature that we now have within our city of that zip line. And if anyone would like to see it truly, someone using it to show us, Nathan, I have him on video on Twitter and Facebook actually using the zip line. Yeah. So it's really quite fabulous, and I'm glad that these are the kind of unique things that we're bringing to our city.
Any other? All right, then I'm going to turn it over to the city manager. Do you have anything to report?
Mayor and Council, be very brief. I have 2 items of information. The first is, and it's already been given to Council, but for the public, we did receive the fiscal year 15 comprehensive annual financial report, what we call CAFR for abbreviation, the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. We've actually received this award since fiscal year 2008. And just to point out, it is the highest form of recognition in government accounting and financial reporting. So it represents a significant accomplishment for our finance department. I see we still have Rebecca Chitwood here with the finance department, so kudos to them for
take great pride
making
in that.
this happen. Second thing, and don't usually single out council members. The vice mayor, I'll blame this one on her. We had an opportunity to go after American Ramp Company's summer demo tour. And so this opportunity was provided by the vice mayor for us to actually bird dog. And what this is a lot of cities can apply for it. We were selected from hundreds of applicants to be an official stop this summer. And the reason I'm noting it tonight is it will take place July 9th at our own Goodyear Community Park from 5 to 8 p.m. So what the American Ramp Company is, it's nationally renowned skate park modular pump track pioneer. They try and do different events throughout communities throughout the country just to really focus on this as a sport. So we'll have a lot of amateurs, a lot of professionals that will be here, a lot of products, free demos, etc. And they'll have an exhibition that will be there as well. So we're looking forward to that, and there will be a lot of shade and hydration for those that come out and watch. But again, thank you for bringing that to our attention.
No, thank Nathan.
And Nathan, yes,
I
for
gave you like one day notice. I said, "Hey, look what I found," and Nathan got it done.
And Vice Mayor, thank you for that. I totally missed that on my talking points, but it was Parks and Rec department that reached out the next day and said we are interested, and we were able to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Yes, Councilman Osborne.
Isn't July 4th next week?
July 9th is when they'll.
No, but aren't we going to have a big celebration July 4th at the ballpark?
I don't even have cheat notes on that. We are having a huge July 4th event. And Nathan, what I know it's under the manager's reports, but can you give a
Nathan, can you come up and just give a little
very
summary?
Quick summary
This
of
shouldn't
that?
be very hard.
There will be fireworks.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, the fireworks.
Might be some dogs.
Mayor and Council, July 4th at the ballpark. Gates open at 6 p.m. Fireworks will start at 9 p.m. Lots of fun, contests, and music entertainment. Looking forward to having the community out for a great event.
Well, last year was spectacular, so we're looking forward to this.
Sorry? We're not breaking any records this year. We do have some great events planned.
Okay.
Great contests. Yeah.
Mayor,
Thank you.
can we put in any music requests?
We're actually working on that set now, so yes, we can.
Okay.
I think you're
We'll
trying
talk.
for AC/DC. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a
Nathan
joke.
knows.
Thank you. You have any inquiries of staff, council? All right. Then the future meeting will be a work session and a regular meeting on July 11th. So I'm going to adjourn this meeting.